Howdy, howdy, folks. Today we are I'm just coming to you live because a friend of mine came onto the channel and I wanted to give him a shout out and do a live Q&A with him. I met him in Wyoming. I think he's got an awesome story and very excited about what he's doing. So I'd like to welcome Chad, the Combat Carnivore, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I love talking to you when we were in Wyoming. I'm glad we connected, and I'm glad we exchanged numbers and continue to connect. And that was one of the coolest things that happened to me was hanging out with you.
Oh, that was awesome. I quite enjoyed it. I loved your story. I love that. We'll let the people know, catch up on the backstory. But I come from a family of veterans, and so I'm huge into helping veterans. I really believe in that. I believe they need to, I believe they're one of the most underserved, underappreciated minorities of people that are kind of getting the shaft in our country. So I
Yeah,
love what you're doing. So you wanna kind of give the people a quick backstory on what you're doing and where you came from.
absolutely. Yeah, so I typically get passionate about this, so sorry in advance if I do, but um I decided to go with the combat carnivore because I'm a veteran and I also participate in combat sports. I'm a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and I'm trying to help combat veterans. I was in the Army and the Navy, and um, right now the suicide rates within the United States of veterans are 22 suicides a day, according to the last statistic I saw, which to me is atrocious. Um, in 2021, I read this other study. There were over 30,000 veteran suicides, and there are 5,075 combat deaths, right? Combat related deaths, which means that you are four times more likely. Wait, sorry, I don't, I said that number wrong. 7,057, 7,057. So you're four times more likely to commit suicide and die by your own hand by joining the United States military than to die by an enemy of the United States. And in addition to that, 135 people in the United States commit suicide a day. 1.6 million people attempt suicide each year. And if you're a man, you're four times more likely to commit suicide. And out of all those statistics, over 68% of them were white males. So and the reason I became obsessed with these statistics is because I was almost one of them. There was something that happened to me when I was in the Army very early in my career, and it sent me down this spiral. And I almost died, and then I ended up developing a bunch of phobias, panic disorders, um, just a general anxiety for no reason. But the thing I think that was almost worse than all of that was the debilitating brain fog where I like couldn't function. And I it was weird for me because I was typically healthy in my eyes, where I was independent and I could do anything I wanted and I had zero anxiety. And I used to tell people, who had depression and anxiety, it's like work out more or do this, it's going to help. Like I was a typical idiot when it came to giving mental health advice to people, because for me, every time I was sad, I just would do something and I would feel better. And I didn't really truly understand it. And I ended up becoming somebody who, with crippling anxiety, debilitating brain fog, crushing depression. And I was so embarrassed about it that I never told anybody about it. The idea that I was like less of a man. Anyway, it got to the point where I wasn't putting a gun to my mouth, but I was like trying to find creative ways to die, in which like my family would still get their life insurance benefits, they would still get the military benefits. Yeah, I just kind of was like looking for a way out without me actively doing it. It was a weird scenario.
Hmm.
So anyway, as I found carnivore, as I got myself back into jujitsu, and by the way, like those are just the surface of all my health problems. Um, as I found carnivore and all these symptoms started to alleviate, I just it became very apparent to me that we have been lied to, that the system has been corrupt. uh, almost everything in me changed. Like my political views change, my spiritual views change. And what was most frustrating was like the enlightening to the corrupt system that I don't know how to even explain. It's like you're more trapped than you think you are. So not only is the food crap, but then when you go to type in what is a healthy diet, how do I get better? All the avenues that they give to you online are a bunch of BS. And it's like when you type in, if you go right now and Google what is a healthy diet, you're going to see fruits and vegetables at the top of the list. You're going to see nowhere where it says red meat. And anywhere it says protein, it's going to say like tofu, or maybe some places might say some like chicken breast, like lean. And they always say, make sure to say lean chicken breast. And if they say healthy fats, it's going to be like avocados, olive oil. You know what I mean? So everything that is meant to be healthy, that is like designed to be healthy, is a load of crap. So you're trapped in multiple ways. So not only are you trapped within the fact that you're addicted to food, but then you're trapped in the narrative of what is considered healthy. And then if you try to make a conscientious effort to get healthy, then you're trapped because you don't know which route to go down, who's spouting the right information. And so I know that's like a long rant, but who am I now? So why did Combat Carnivore come into existence? I stopped my jujitsu channel, my jujitsu YouTube based content, and I still do some of it, but just so I can be one of the voices out there to help. I might be a random person that you come across that has a message that connects with you. And if that can connect with you, if you're a veteran or you're a man and you're suffering silently, as like Joe Rogan would put it, what are the intervention methods? And right now, I think the current intervention methods are garbage. And so I was like, if they're this garbage, who out there is providing the right answers? I don't believe there's enough of us. So I felt like it was almost my duty, knowing those numbers, knowing 135 people a day commit suicide, knowing that 9.5 out of 10 people, so 95 out of 100 people, are dealing with some life altering health issue, whether it be mental health issue, whether it be autoimmune disorder, whether it be diabetes. There's the likelihood that you're dealing with some life altering medical issue is 95 out of 100. And so that's crazy to me, that alters your life, what you normally would have been doing. And so I just like, I have to do something about this. It was like a calling, drive that I wake up every single morning, and I need to get this message to as many people as possible, especially veterans, especially men, and say like, hey, you are not trapped. You have been lied to. You have been tricked. You have been duped. You have been poisoned, and you're continuously being poisoned. Now, I know this seems radical. I know it seems weird. And I know that we have had almost a century of brainwashing telling us that red meat is wrong. You know what I mean? And that's going to cause heart disease, and high cholesterol is a bad thing. And I'm here to tell you that's actually the life-saving part. There's a reason. There's a reason why we're all sick.
100%.
And
When you said that, that you're going to read about what, what people would say the diet is to cure these problems, and they bring up seed oils and healthy
mhm,
fats and soy, right? It's like our hormones cannot be healthy and cannot thrive without cholesterol, without animal fat.
mhm,
Our brain is 70% cholesterol and 30% protein, which happens to be pretty much the exact balance of protein to fat in a ruminant animal,
exactly.
and red meat, right? Like we're designed to be. Yet they take all that away, and we watch the mental health decline, and then we pretend like we don't know what's going on here. Meanwhile, we're sitting here eating all these seed oils that cause inflammation, cancer, and we eat all this soy that is absolutely destroying our hormones and lowering testosterone and putting us into a chemical, blender of messed up, out of balance hormones. And then we wonder what's happening to our mental health, and wonder why there's so much depression, anxiety, ADHD, all this stuff that's going on, why we can't cope. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge point.
Dude, what you just said, what did you call it? A chemical blender? What was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, a
I
chemical
love that.
blender of nonsense. I mean, it's just I mean, I was there for a long time, man, and and they sit here and they keep pushing the diet that will not heal our hormones, right? It just keeps they keep keeps all the hormones out of balance, like just perpetually, and then they feed us drugs.
So that's actually, I finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to use these resources that the Army keeps talking about. Right? I'm going to use these resources where it's like, call this number, call this hotline, whatever. And I was so crippled that I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And you choke up like your pride, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go talk to this person, tell them I need help, tell them. And I thought that they were going to kick me out of the Army. I thought I was going to like lose my clearance. And so I finally did it. And I was like, it's worth it. Here's their current intervention methods. They look at you kind of like you're crazy. They nod. And they say, you know what? This world is better with you in it. You are loved. Here's an SSRI. And if you don't know what an SSRI is, it's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which helps you artificially maintain serotonin within your body, but it messes with your neurotransmitters. And SSRIs, in addition, have a very low success rate. Not only do they have a low success rate, but they have an even lower remission rate, down to some estimates as low as 30%, while simultaneously having plenty of studies that show that SSRIs increase the risk in certain cases of people acting on suicide and making them more depressed. So even if they were depressed, not suicidal, these drugs had enough studies where if you started to take them, you could become suicidal. And so now they have these labels on the kids and now adults, the black label from, I want to say the FDA, right? And it says like, hey, this might cause more suicide. This might cause more depression, right? And that's still their best intervention method, right? 20 years when I was telling you about the study that, right, over 30,000 people 30,000 veterans had committed suicide. And 20 years later, the best intervention methods that they still have are you're loved, the world is better with you in it, here's an SSRI. And what's weird is they lose their license if they don't prescribe it. Right. And then they can lose their license if they prescribe too much. And this is all things that doctors, well, my experience, right, being given androgynous chemicals that are designed to modify my brain chemistry. You know what I mean? Inside a place that's already got it messed up, right? And then in addition to that, that's my experience. And then now I'm talking to multiple doctors. I mean, I'm talking with Dr. Sean O'Mara pretty soon on a podcast. But when I was talking to him in person, he was talking about it. Dr. Kiltz was talking about it. And Dr. Anthony Chafee was talking about it, about how like when you work with veterans, you lose your license based on how little or how much you give to these veterans without even considering, how about we don't go this route? How about we do something that's better? How about we go with something that has more results? And you know what's the worst part about it? I wouldn't say it's the worst part, but one of the worst parts about it is these chemicals, though you cannot call them addictive through the semantics of what it means to be addicted, but you do become dependent. You do have withdrawals, horrible withdrawals. My experience, Michaela Peterson's experience, people who get on SSRIs to get through daily life have a horrible time coming off of it. And so not only are they not effective, generally speaking, but in addition to that, to get off of them, once you're on them, you become dependent, and it's even horrible. It's even worse to get off of them. So you're going to take somebody who has mental health problems and put them through more mental health problems to get off of this drug that you're making them dependent on.
Right.
And what's crazy is you start going down this and you start to realize that pharmaceutical companies are the number one investment into lobbying, into donating, being donors for political, for politicians, for political campaigns. By far, they are the number one. And it makes sense that they're the only SSRIs from these pharmaceutical companies are the only advice you're allowed to give as a doctor. Yeah. And so it's like they're almost banking on the fact that you're going to go get PTSD, you're going to come back, you're going to require drugs, and then you're going to get on these drugs. So you're going to make them money. And then it's like you're going to commit suicide eventually. because it's a chronic illness. And so now the government is alleviated of the burden of paying you for the rest of your life because you have an early death. And it to me, once you start following the money, you're just like, this is atrocious. This is
Right.
garbage. And they gaslight the hell out of you to tell you this is your fault. Like, you
100%.
have PTSD, you have the false genetics, you have what did you say earlier? Where it's like you have the lack of self-control.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
Oh, for
on
sure.
you.
Well, for sure. That's what all the propaganda is built on, right? If we look at everything, this is why they disenfranchise these groups. This is why they come after it. Because if they started to actually get to the bottom of healing these diseases, it would all lead back to diet. It would all lead back to the environmental changes that have caused this much behavioral change with, 74%, and you even said up to 90% of people on the planet, right? If you went to that, I love Gary Taub and Dr. Robert Lustig, where they say that the only way that you can have this much of an impact on 8 billion people, 70, because 74% was the last statistic I heard on, that 74% of the population of the planet is metabolically sick and is either overweight or obese, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that you can affect, like, there's not enough money that you could pay people and not enough authority that you could have over them, even by gunpoint, to affect 74% of 8 billion people to go in lockstep and have these kind of effects. The only way you can do it is to change the environment, right? To change
Mm-hmm.
the food environment. And they know what they're doing. They've done this. The food environment's been screwed up, and now they have to defend it. So, what is the best course of action? Well, it's just point the finger at you, going, you're the problem. It's not us. It's not what we did to the food. It's not the environment and how we changed it. You're the problem. If you just eat less, if you would just, you know, if you would just have more willpower, if you would listen to the experts and not question it and do the protocol, you would be fine. But then the protocol turns you into a zombie, turns you sick, turns you submissive, then you die, and nobody gets, you don't have to hear from them. And then the cover up is, well, they weren't really doing what they're supposed to do. Well, they were, everybody's eating bad. It's so addictive, and
Mm-hmm.
that is absolutely the propaganda that covers up this stuff. That's literally, in my opinion, why the calorie in, calorie out, calorie deficit thing is so much. Like, where else does putting less proper strengthening material into a system cause strength and healing? Like, their message is, you need to put less protein and fat that sustains the body and heals the body. You need to take that out, eat less of it, and then you'll be healthy, right? And boy, if you put that terrible red meat that all your muscles and ligaments and everything are made out of, you put that fat in there that your hormones are balanced with and your brain works off of, you put that in there, oh man, that's going to be bad for you. You got to limit that stuff. You just can't eat too much of that. But go ahead and have your sugar that's 8 times more addictive than heroin, but it's on you. The onus is on you to not overdo it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's insanity, and that's what you're telling me here, and it sounds right. It sounds. What is the benefit to them healing us, and what is the benefit to exactly what you said, letting us be sick, controllable, and then paying into the system for almost renting symptom relief for a short period of time until we die, and they don't have to pay out, veterans benefits or social security or any of the stuff we paid in, just killing us off.
Yeah, and making money off of us before we do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, make us dependent. So first make us sick, then make us dependent, and then die a slow death. That all consist of the medical system and being dependent on the medical system.
Right.
Right. But it's weird because, like, to them, it's like, well, they retire around 70 years old anyway. You're right. 65, 70. So it's like, it's good that they're living to that long. And then it's like right after that, you know what I mean? And so I think if we were all dying earlier and earlier, which like we are now, I think it would be more of a problem. But at the same time, the pharmaceutical companies make more money in that sense. But regardless, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory anymore. I think it's just, you need to look up the facts, right? Like, And that's a number I was coming across, it wasn't worldwide. It's like in the United States, it's like up to 90% of the people have some sort of metabolic dysregulation. And then all the people that may not have a metabolic dysregulation might come across like, being bit by a tick with like Lyme disease, right? Like
Right.
other life altering things. So the likelihood that you're going to run across something that's going to change your life, that you're going to have to deal with, it's going to alter the way that you want to live life, is like they are estimating up to 95%.
Right.
That's crazy to me.
100%. I'm going to pull up some of these comments and just say shout out to them. We're going to get to some questions.
Okay.
And I just want to give these guys a shout out real quick. Howdy from Texas. Appreciate you. Thanks for talking about this. I have CPTSD and somatic healing experiences have been helping me. We'll be adding Carnivore as well. Very good.
Can I talk to Robin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Robin, I don't know if you got that from being a veteran, right? I think that's what you're saying, but CPTSD, right? Combat-based PTSD. But if it is combat-based PTSD, what is happening to you, and regardless of what the PTSD actually is, the problem lies within when you go through systematic and you go through prolonged periods of time where you're under immense stress, while at the same time eating a diet that is full of carbs and processed foods. We already have shown that both of these decrease the size of the hippocampus. So, and it increases, it makes the size of the amygdala swollen. And so, what the job of the fight or flight system in your body is you have an amygdala, and your amygdala sends signals out to your hypothalamus to release your fight or flight chemicals. Okay. And these fight or flight chemicals are what basically turn you back into an animal and do whatever you need to survive, right? And we know that. And we know that through panicking, anxiety, so on and so forth. But what's interesting is your hippocampus is the thing that remembers it. And so it remembers what event caused that. And what we end up finding out is that when you're eating processed food, junk food or carbs, regardless, you're not getting into ketosis and you're not eating cholesterol in order to improve that. What you are doing is there's a chemical in your body called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And what it's designed to do is it's designed to rebuild and regulate the brain, and it builds gray matter in the brain. And when you have high insulin, you cannot activate BDNF. And so when you're eating this junk food, you're lowering the activity of your BDNF while at the same time increasing the size of your amygdala, and you're decreasing the size of your hippocampus. And now there is a direct relationship between mental status and the size of your hippocampus. So the smaller your hippocampus becomes, the more likely you are to be anxious or depressed, or of course we call it PTSD. And we start having like kind of false memories of things that cause PTSD. And so it's called amygdala hijacking. And so your amygdala starts, because it's all swollen, it just starts sending like random signals to go into fight or flight when you're not expecting it. And then it's causing this kind of snowball effect, this domino effect, in which like you're completely out of whack. And you, at the same time, you don't have any of the resources in your body to fix it, because once your brain becomes insulin resistant, so let me back up a little bit. Your brain is about 7% of your body mass, yet consumes, I think, a little bit over 20%, around 20% of your overall energy resources. It's like one of the most energy taxing systems in your body. And so when you are stressed, when you're going through prolonged periods of time of stress that are all going to be traumatic, right? Your body at the same time is becoming insulin resistant. So it's taking up all that energy while giving it a bunch of junk food. And so not only is it become insulin resistant, that those energy sources cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. So even if you were producing BDNF with a proper diet, the likelihood of those resources getting across the blood-brain barrier becomes lower and lower. And out of the statistics we were talking about, Out of the 8,000 veterans a year that commit suicide, over 5,000 of those veterans are ages 50 years and older, which means that we get worse over time, where it's the exact opposite trend from World War I and World War II veterans. They had PTSD, suicide rates were kind of high, then the war was over, and then they got better over time. We're seeing the exact opposite effect. We're seeing more insulin resistance in the brain, right? It's like almost like you guys are like, when I say you guys, it's almost like people who are in combat zones and people are going through stressed environments. It's like they're accelerating the rate at which their brain produces energy. And so it's almost like you're getting that dementia and that Alzheimer's and stuff early. And that's kind of the way I view it. So once you get to ketosis, ketones can finally cross the blood-brain barrier. Okay. And that's when you can start getting energy. That's when you can start getting resources and minerals and vitamins, cholesterol up to your brain in order to heal. And then when you're constantly eating and your insulin is up, like we talked about, your body is no longer releasing human growth hormone. It's not releasing stem cells. It's not releasing BDNF. It's not until you get to a fasted state or fasted mimicking state, which you get through carnivore or fasting, do those finally get released into your brain. And I talked to Todd about this. I remember for 10 years, I used to beg and pray for an hour of mental clarity. And I never got that until I went on my first fast. And it makes sense to me now, right? And so if you have either chronic PTSD or combat-related PTSD, there's a lot of things leading up to that. And the answer is you are not broken. Humans, especially the alpha predators of the world, the most alpha predators on the planet, are not designed to crumble under stress. We're designed to thrive under stress. Because something stressful happened to you does not mean that you deserve to be a mess for the rest of your life, dependent on chemicals just to barely make it and freaking white knuckle it through every single day of your life. That's not the case. You have been lied to and you have been poisoned. Right. They even admit, if you go on to army.mil right now, I believe where it was, and you look up the nutrition within an MRE, they even say in there it's full of processed foods and that there's no fresh food. And you're allowed to be on that for 21 days in a row for all of your nutrients. And they already showed that 1 week of being on a junk food diet increases depression and mental illness drastically just from 1 week of junk food added to your diet. You are 100% on junk food while getting shot at every day for up to almost a month. And then when you come back home, you're fed nothing but more junk food. And then they make you dependent on the SSRI as quick as they can when you say like, hey, I'm having some troubles. So there's a lot that goes into that. And maybe I butchered some of it, but overall, you can Google all of this. Look up that the volume of the hippocampus is directly related to chronic PTSD. Look up the size of the amygdala and look up how food, BDNF, insulin, and is all related to that. It's all, you can all Google it. It's no secret. And it's by legitimate studies and claims.
So let's back up a little bit. How did you find carnivore and how did you realize all this? I mean, did you find carnivore because you're looking for a cure, or did you where did you come from with this?
So I had been looking up for 10 years, and this is why I was so mad. 10 years of unnecessary suffering. Looking up because I was going through my degree at the time, my undergrad in math and physics. And so I started taking this with a very scientific approach. I was like, I wasn't always like this. Something must have happened to me to make this happen. And so there's got to be a way out, kind of the way I was thinking about it. And so one of the things I started to do is I started experimenting with certain things I was doing. And then that got me onto, I think there's like a relationship between what I'm eating. And then sure enough, I started cutting things out of my diet, adding things back into my diet. And that's why I started as like, what is a healthy diet? And that's what makes me so angry, is because I followed all of the healthy trends. I have been researching diet for the last 10 years. I have been teaching myself how to read like medical papers. I'm still not very good at it, but I've been teaching myself to read these studies to try to understand what's going on with me, because it's like everybody and their aunt wants to write some sort of article about how avocados are the best fucking thing in the world for you. Sorry for cursing, but it's it drives me crazy because I followed all those recommendations. Like, what's a high histamine diet? What is a low inflammatory diet? What is this? What is that? And I followed every diet you could possibly think of. I went vegan, I went vegetarian, I went Mediterranean. I did all the things. I would get better sometimes, I would get way worse other times, and nothing was making sense because some things over here worked, well, those things over there didn't work, and it was like kind of like these cross relationships where it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, that would be making me feel better over here on the right side, while those other things are making me sick. Well, this over here is claiming that those things that are making me sick are actually what I feel the best on. You know what I mean? And so it's like the diets weren't making sense, and everyone seems to be an expert on it. And so it becomes very discouraging. But what I would do is for 2 months at a time, I would follow every single diet I could find to the most strict of my abilities. Right. And once I actually started to feel better when giving up all processed food, I knew I was on the right track. But every time I went to a doctor, I said, my diet is contributing to my mental health disorder, they would all look at me like I was crazy, and they say, you need more pills.
Right.
They all looked at me. They all, and then, what's funny is, like, right now I'm applying for veterans benefits, and I'm reading through all my doctor's notes, and they're all like, most likely psychosomatic, suggested taking more of this, suggested this, blah, blah, blah. I was in my 20s having scopes going in and out of my body in the non, dignifying ways and then at the end of it, they would be like, yeah, your gut's inflamed, take more fiber. You know what I mean? So anywho, so I'm sitting to just kind of build a foundation. So I'm 10 years in of going through hell, wanting to die, going ups and downs. Every just moment of my life is panic or brain fog or anxiety or depression. And then finally I see Paul Saladino getting yelled at by some crazy woman on some show, like just yelling. It was weird. And he's like sitting there taking it kind of like, I think he did a good job, but he's a psychologist saying like, hey, your diet can be related to your mental health. And finally I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Someone said it. Someone finally said it. And so I started following Dr. Paul Saladino, and then he's the one who made the connection for me. What is a proper human diet? I was like, that totally makes sense. Red meat's okay. Started eating red meat, started feeling significant improvements. And then I learned about it, and then I watched his interview with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and then I kind of slipped over to Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and then I fell into the carnivore world. I was like, what is the carnivore world? You know what I mean? Dr. Sean Barry, Sean Baker, Dr. Barry, and all the doctors. I don't want to miss one, but Dr. Kiltz. And I was like, this is making so much sense. And so it's kind of like you find that one little thing to get you down the path, and there's a whole hidden world, and everyone thinks you're crazy. But you know what? Since I've gone full carnivore and given up dairy and given up a lot of different things, coffee, tea, and I was never a big coffee drinker, but giving up all the things that everyone says is okay and just going strict carnivore, like I can do things I was never able to do before. My panic was so bad that I couldn't do basic things like drive a car by myself. Wow. My wife, I was a grown-ass man with my wife giving me rides to work or catching rides to work. And now, like I just drove all over town, and which used to be like something I physically could not do. And so anyway, like this all happened because I went full carnivore. So that's how I found carnivore. And then that started sending me down the spiral of like, we have been lied to. I was suffering for so many years, and it was all BS. It was all to make money off of me. It was all a way to not like mask, but protect the man behind the curtain, right? Which is the food company.
Right. And I mean, that's the exact point, right? Like, are you one of the, most genius people that's ever walked across this earth? Am I? I'm a dumb, construction worker from Montana, and I figured out that it was diet, right? And it's absolutely is. And you did, and a lot of people in this carnivore community, they're just normal people doing normal things every day. And all I'm saying is this can't be an accident, right? This can't be that hard to figure out. There is a concerted attack to keep this information from us and to cover it up and to spin it and to tell us lies and to feed us bullshit to keep this money, drug company money, system, this machine running. And they all pretend like that this is an accident. This is why, you know, I'm not blaming every doctor. I'm not trying to vilify every single doctor. I realize that they too are victims of the propaganda machine, and they too are
Mm-hmm.
being lied to, and they think that they're doing everything that's best right now, most of them, and then they get in a spot. But I mean, it's so obvious at this point. If you step back and see what's going on, and you actually, especially if you try carnivore for yourself and whatever problem you're having, and you try it for yourself, and you see how much stuff that they said you're just going to be helplessly addicted to, that you're going to be powerless to, that is not going to heal, that only drugs are your only hope, all these things that you didn't even think about were diet related, will start to clear up and just go away, like, and just disappear, like it becomes so obvious that this is the answer for so many of these things. And then when you look at all the things that diet really cures, and then you look at all the methods that we use right now to treat those things, and how much
Mm-hmm.
money is made off of those, and how much control is gained out of treating those things, you realize that we're at war. You realize we are being attacked. There's an enemy at foot here that's working against us, and they are making money off of us. They are manipulating us. They are feeding us full of bullshit propaganda so that we will be controllable and subservient and weak. And they're doing it every day to us. And it has nothing like, I mean, it makes it really hard to trust any of the narrative or any of the white coat professionals and the science. I love it when they call it the science. The science is anything but the science, right? It
Yeah.
has to be continually stressed and tried. But I mean, it's incredible what's going on when you really start to see. And anybody that doesn't think that's true, just back up and go look around you. How did we get so sick and so miserable and so overweight and so weak when we look around, and it's happening everywhere? I mean, just absolutely everywhere.
Dr. Anthony Chafee actually talks to this, where like you're talking about the doctors, and he's like, well, you guys are just fat and overweight because you're not listening to the doctors. And he's like, no, we are listening to the doctors. Like in the United States, vegetable and fruit consumption went up by 30%. Red meat consumption went down by 30%. Uh, Saturated fat went down by 30%. And seed oils, got consumed at 30% increase. And heart disease tripled in that amount of time. Makes sense to me. We have been listening to the doctors, and you want to talk about keeping us like subservient, like it's circus and bread, right? When like the Roman citizens were getting to like, they felt like there was a rebellion coming or something like that, or an uprising,
Yep.
what they would do is they would stop meat production, or they would stop providing meat into the cities, give them free bread, and then start the games.
Right.
Circus and bread. Yeah, they would start the games. They would start chariot racing. They would start gladiator games, because as long as your dopamine is being met,
Yep.
and you're basically being chemically castrated because you're not getting to your hormones, you become a subservient race.
Pacified.
Like,
Yep.
yeah,
100%.
and
You're just distracted, pacified. They can shove, and all of a sudden you just want to do this. You don't want to live for any kind of meaning. You don't want to fight any battles. You just want this little fix, and you got this comfortable, happy little dopamine life that you're living. So you don't want to be shaken out of that little reality.
exactly. So a lot of people do not realize how much their dopamine is related to the rest of the chemicals in their body. Dopamine is so addicting because in life it is so difficult. And when I say real life, like our ancestors, in order to get that dopamine, it had to be earned. It was difficult to get food. Meant you had to go up and face the world. You had to face the sun. You had to face the elements. You had to face the snow. You had to face the water. You had to face other animals that were trying to kill you. You had to face plants that were trying to kill you. Poison, venom. You're trying to face, and then the thing that you were trying to kill would try to kill you back. You know what I mean? And then you would
Yeah.
have to get that all the way back to your tribe. You don't know if you would get hypothermia. You don't know if you would get pneumonia. You don't know, like, just to get a meal in your belly was very difficult.
Hmm.
And so what ends up happening is it makes dopamine that so like such a like, you know, when you get it, so that way
Right.
you're like, I need that again. And it tells your brain, remember how good this was. In addition to that, when your dopamine gets released, guess what? All what other chemicals get blocked?
Hmm.
Your motivational chemicals, the ones that tell you to keep going, the one that tells you to keep pushing through it, the one that says, I know this is hard, but you need to get to the other side of this. And
Right.
so, you know, like your melatonin is even related to dopamine. People don't realize how related these chemicals are with one another in intimate relationships. And so, when you wake up in the morning and you just have a bunch of food,
Right.
when you like all those motivational chemicals go away. So the likelihood that you're going to uprise to the government goes down. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
you know,
100%.
we're basically all strung out. We're
For sure.
eating garbage. We're strung out on dopamine. You wake up in the morning, you get blue light in your eyes. You get all the information you want in the world. You can watch porn with a click of a button and see anything you want to see. Where for the longest time, in order to mate, was like you had to earn your place in the tribe and get chosen in order to be like wed with somebody in order to reproduce, in order to earn a right to reproduce. In order to get information, you had to learn through very difficult trial and error. It's like, is that thing okay to eat over there? And you go and try, and then your aunt dies, and you're like, well, I guess not. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like learning, food, learning, and reproduction are very, very difficult tasks to our DNA. And so the
Right.
fact that you wake up in the morning and you can get all three of those within 5 minutes keeps you just strung out, and then your body needs more and more and more, and it basically fries your brain the equivalent that meth fries your brain. And yeah, and then you always go below baseline every single time you do it. So it's like you said, it keeps us, I believe I'm using this word correct, but oppressed and subservient.
Right.
And yeah, so anywho, that's what makes me most mad about the military.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that you get your soldiers broken, and then rather than repairing them, you make them the only ones who are worth fighting. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
only ones who are worth keeping, that could rise against the government, you keep them the most oppressed, in my opinion.
Right.
And yeah,
And that's
like
not an accident, right? That's not,
no,
no, no, that's what
no,
I'm saying. When you look around and you realize how men's testosterone is tanking, how they're attacking toxic masculinity, calling it toxic masculinity, all this stupid nonsense. They're saying that in another 30 years, men won't even be able to father children because of the decline of testosterone and sex hormones.
yeah,
And then we are literally in a society where we're so full of microplastics and seed
hmm
oils and soy that, I mean, we're questioning gender all of a sudden, you know, like we're
yeah. Tell me
yeah,
about it. Like
yeah,
every single movie and TV show, the only masculine male that's on there generally, unless it's like a war movie, is like the guy who's abusive to his wife, or the
right,
guy who's a dick.
the
The guy,
villain.
but the guy who is like the hero of the story is like effeminate, and he's like gentle, and he's really soft. You know what I mean? And it's like
Hmm.
this constant. Not only is it like the chemicals they're putting in us, but like the constant narrative that they're putting in us is like, to be a man is inherent with toxicity. And like we have all the data already. It's just the narrative is so much stronger than the data, that like having lack of masculinity in with a society or a house or a community is actually what leads to more violent tendencies
Absolutely,
and behaviors.
absolutely,
Yeah, like
absolutely.
youth without regulation, youth without structure. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
weak men, and nobody that's ever built any discipline. Those are the people that can't control their emotions and their anger, and those are the people
Mm,
that turn to violence first, right? They're the ones that can't function under stress or fear or a threat, and so they lash out. They try to take out the threat, because they can't control anything. I mean, the Bible talks about this. That's why it says the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek in Hebrew is described as he who has a big sword but chooses to not unsheath it, right? You have to
mm,
be formidable, you have to be dangerous, you have to be powerful, but you have to also be disciplined and virtuous and moral to not abuse the power, right? And that keeps
Yes.
peace. Well,
You know what?
that's got to be in that kind of the. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but isn't that basically the message of jujitsu? You know?
No, I was about to get into it. Yeah. So like I believe so if you are veteran, are you dealing with PTSD? Are you are dealing with some sort of mental strife that is affecting your day-to-day life? Listen to this message right now. You are not broken. There are three parts of you generally, and this is old wisdom. This is ancient knowledge. The mind, body, and the soul. Whether you believe in a soul or not, we're talking about the version of you that makes you unique or humanly unique. And what I mean by that is you are an animal, basically, right? You have this body, you can't get away from it. This is you. Okay. And then as an animal, you are a human, which is distinct from every other animal. And then as a human, you are an individual. Okay. And so what I mean by this is uh, every single day you should satisfy all three parts of the mind, body, and soul in you. You should do something that gets the animal instinct out because you need it. You need that part of your brain and you need it to be balanced. You need to do something that makes you uniquely human. So do something that is like only humans can do and no other animal can do. And then you should do something that makes you humanly unique. What separates you from every other person, right? And you satisfy all three of those, the mind, body, and the soul, right? And so the way I talk about this is I call it steak, strangles, and stoicism. Those are my big three, and I'll tell you why I think they're the most important. Is because uh, when we do the mind, body, and soul, we do stakes, and we'll talk about that as the body is. You have to make sure that your body is the most in alignment with the way it's naturally designed to function. And the reason why you have to do that is because if you're running off inflammation and sick, all the things in which you perceive this reality will go downhill. All those motivational chemicals, the dopamine, the so on and so forth, they will be out of whack. And your ability to do the rest of these things will not be able to be optimized, period. All right. So now you have to do something that is like uniquely human. And so for me, that's going to be, even though this kind of fits in multiple categories, but jujitsu, a lot of people think that would be the body, but that sharpens the mind. We're using the body to sharpen the mind. And this is very important for everybody out there. Simulating combat or simulating a life and death situation in a safe environment in which you are training, in which you're around a community that is built in hierarchy, a hierarchy that is earned through execution. And these people, iron sharpens iron. You love one another. You trust one another. You have to trust that when someone's choking you, you tap and that they let go and that they're not going to hurt you. But at the same time, you have to trust that they're going to go hard enough against you that you are going to get better. And at the same time, your body, especially for combat veterans, going back to that place of combat is going to be the best option for you. But my friends call it a PTSD flare up. It's like, I'm going to have a PTSD flare up and I'm going to see red. Like, it doesn't matter. If I'm grappling you as a black belt and you have a PTSD moment flare up, you're not going anywhere. I promise you. You know what I mean? I'm going to hold you down and you're going to have to get to the other side of this. And the idea is that we are sharpening the mind to get from that amygdala, the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, the things that keep you in animal mode, and get that over to your logical reasoning, like the prefrontal cortex, right? To realize, hey, I am okay. And so what being a martial artist is, and what a lot of people don't realize, is being human, even in the worst case scenario. Remaining human, remaining logical, not being sent back to being an animal. Does that make sense? Like, not going to your fight or flight, not going to the reptilian part of the brain, remaining human as much as possible. And how do you do that? You do that through training. So even if somebody is physically trying to take your life away, you're the one that's still a human while they might be an animal, and who has got the better shot, who's got the better chances of getting through that. And so that's the real life application of a martial art. But if you look back and you look at the philosophical application, and everyone kind of knows this quote where it's like, I would rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. It's not the time to learn how to be a warrior once the war's already started. Trust me. And so what you do as a martial artist is you're training yourself to remain logical and untouched and immovable, regardless of the environment, regardless of the outside circumstances that might happen to you, you are the one that remains remains, I was going to say erect, but you know, I mean, the one that stands
Right.
strong, the
Right.
one that stands resilient, the one that's unmoved. And so the idea is like when you do jujitsu and then you're like driving home, someone cuts you off, you're like, that's okay. You know what I mean? Like less
Right.
things are able to trigger you for you to respond to, and you have less things out there controlling you.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And that leads us into stoicism, which is like bringing on the practical life philosophy in which you are responsible for your actions and you are responsible for being in charge of your emotional regulation, regardless of the outside events. In
Hmm.
between stimulus and response, there is space. And in that space is the time to choose. And so you are now responsible. And I would say that not only responsible, but you are almost called upon to be the best version of yourself, to make the best decisions in those moments. And every time you let the excuse where it's like, well, I have PTSD and that triggered me, it's like, no, you're just basically a response to everybody else and everything else. Does that even make you you? And so then I would say that stoicism calls upon you to make you you. What are your actual thoughts? Are you just a response? What are your
Well, yeah.
actual emotions? Are you just a response to what's going on? So anyway, that's a long
Well,
thing to say.
that's
Real
awesome.
quick,
Yeah.
let me bring this back around, that you're talking about these people who the toxic masculinity. For those people who don't, everyone avoids hard times, everyone eats garbage food, everyone doesn't have to take responsibility, everyone's like, I love myself, I'm perfect the way I am. They're not willing to face the hard things. So when you talk about this toxic masculinity, it's like you're exactly right. Your assessment of it is so spot on when you say they turn back into an animal. They're trying to prove something. They feel threats from every single way. You know what I mean? And they're run by emotion rather than being able to regulate their emotions. And so they basically just turn into like a wild animal in the sense where it's like you're just going to respond for whatever's best for you. And whenever you feel threatened, you're going to bite.
Right.
But if you domesticate your emotions, you know what I mean? And you look at a well trained dog, man, does that dog the best freaking thing ever? And you can see the difference between a well trained dog and a person who never trains their dog and a wild animal. Like you can see all these kind of relate up. You need to train your mind as if it's if it's a dog, but as if it's an animal that needs to be tamed and domesticated. You are human. And so do something that satisfies the animal part of you, because that's the thing that's going to get you out and deal with, you know, the sun and all these things about the hunt that I talked about earlier. You need to do something that makes you uniquely human, which means that it's like something that is never going to compromise the fact that you are distinct from other animals, what makes you human and falling in line with that, and something that makes you humanly unique. And so amongst all these other people, you are going against the crowd and you are thinking for yourself, and you have the ability to be autonomous in your goings on of life because you have the discipline to not respond to all the outside influences. So I know that was a very long thing, and why I believe in steak strangles and stoicism for a multitude of reasons on top of that. But your assessment was so perfect that I had to capitalize on what you were saying.
Well, and I want to go back on a few of those things too that I agree with. So oddly enough, I mean, I think me and you see it from two different fields of view, but it's odd how similar they both are, right? So I see it from I'm a Christian. I believe in my faith very much, and so what you're talking about being doing the thing that's uniquely human, the Bible would say understanding who we are, who we were created to be, right? Like, so the Bible talks about that we are created in God's image and we're the only creature that is like that. And that's what sets us aside. Also, the direction, right? I think the whole purpose of this earth is that we are here to grow, that we're here to be the best versions of ourselves and do that through, for me, it's through relationship with my creator, God. And so I
Mm-hmm.
find that really interesting. But when you said, and I'm saying that to say this, when you said that if you are not, if you are acting as that animal, and you are, who is that even you that you're acting like, right? And I love that because I love a talk that Jordan Peterson gave once about, if you are saying things that you don't believe and you are uh, arguing points that you know are wrong, then is that even you talking? Are you even the one talking? Right?
Mouthpiece, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that, if you're arguing to win and it's based off of a lie or something that's not true, then you're probably arguing from a spirit of fear. Like it's a spirit of fear manifestation that you are arguing from that's speaking for you, or it's a spirit of um, manipulation or whatever, right? Something else is speaking for you in that time. And that's kind of what you were saying, which I thought was really interesting because I think when you said, we're all striving to try to be the best version of ourselves, I totally agree with that because I think no matter what, I think you have to choose. If you're not
Hmm.
striving to do that, then you are absolutely devolving into the worst version of yourself no matter what, like by default, right?
Hmm.
Because we are in motion no matter what you do. We're not static. We're not going to sit still. There's going to be an outcome, right? There's going to be a direction that we're traveling in. And so if you're not traveling in the right direction, you are by default traveling in the wrong direction, right?
You have to be. You have
Yeah.
to be. You're always moving, like you said.
Yeah. So I related a lot to what you said there. I thought that was an awesome talk there.
Well,
We do have one question that I wanted to
yeah.
see if we could put this up. You want to answer that question? How does one know whether it's time to come off of the meds for PTSD and if they're even helping that much? Your thoughts?
So obviously, I am not a doctor, right? So consult your doctor. But how do you know once it's time? I think anybody on, in my opinion, I think anybody off on SSRIs, that's the time. I think there's better ways to go through it. And so I don't think you need to be waiting for anything. I think that as soon as you can start waning off very slowly, uh, waning off the androgynous chemicals are messing with your neurotransmitters, so that way you can get back to the healthiest point as soon as possible. I think that's the way to do it. And like I said, go slow. Talk to your doctor. Tell them, hey, I don't want to be on this anymore, and see what they have to say and take it into consideration. But do it very slow, and you can do it right now. I don't think you need to be ready. I don't think when people say like you'll never be ready for kids. It's the same thing. Like um, you're going through change anyway, and you're going through evolution of your body, your physiological changes, and your mental changes, and your spiritual changes. You want that all to be part of the same process, in my opinion. So when I got off of all of my drugs and all of my SSRIs, it's like right when I made that decision, like I don't think these drugs are doing anything for me. And I learned more about carnivore and things. I was like, I think I can heal myself. That's the day I started to wane off of it. And it took me, I want to say 2 weeks, 3 weeks to wane off of it completely. And I remember in the last week, I was like taking a half of a dose and I was doing it every other day. And then one day I just decided like I forgot to do it. And then I was like, you know what? Well, to see what happens from here. And then I had definitely some withdrawal symptoms that I won't go into right now. And then a couple weeks after that, it was almost like I was like out of the woods. I know it's worse for some people. I know the worst thing you could do is just flush those pills down the toilet. So we have to do everything gradually, unfortunately, especially when it comes to our neurotransmitters. So to answer your question, how do you know, or like, how does one know whether it's time? I think the time is right now because I think every single day you put that pill back into your body, that dependency gets even worse, and you add another day of chemical imbalances, I guess, that are more away from what your body's naturally designed to do.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're not medical doctors, but people ask me similar questions about a lot of the medicine that I came off of, and honestly, I just threw it in the garbage one day, and I know that wasn't probably the safest or the smartest thing, and I'm not telling anybody to do it, but at a certain point, we have to. There's definitely probably more responsible ways to do things, but at a certain point, we have to start advocating for ourselves and be our best. Take our life in our own hands and decide we're gonna do something different. Every time that I just look back, I go, are SSRIs a net positive or a net negative? Are they helping people for real? They might be putting a band-aid on something for a short period of time for somebody's on the edge that could save something for somebody that's really bad off for a minute of doing something, but in the long run, is it a net positive? I don't think so. I don't think there's any way in hell it is, you know?
Mm.
And yeah,
Doctors are in the business. They're not in the business of health. Doctors are in the business of symptom
management.
management.
Yeah,
Yeah. Period.
100%.
And what's very interesting about what you said and what I want to get to is I don't think people realize how beautiful the body is, how powerful the body is, and how much more intelligent the body is than we give it credit for. The fact that it knows how to heal. We take everything for granted. It's like you have an injury, and your body just freaking repairs itself. I don't have to give any effort to it. It does all these. It does all these things. It does all these processes without me even like consciously being like, hey, or commanding. There's a word. I'm like not even commanding my body to do it. It just heals it. It's uh it so to go back to what you're talking about with Christianity. So I have a very I have a relationship with Christianity that's I won't get into on the show unless we get to it later down the road. But every single thing that I have mentioned here, like for example, St. Augustine was a Stoic. The prayers that we talk about is like, please give me the wisdom to know, like, please give me the understanding to know what I can and cannot change. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
wisdom to know how. And I butchered that prayer, but that's a Stoic principle taken from Christians. Stoicism isn't a religion. It applies to whatever religion you want. It's a practical life philosophy. It doesn't require you to believe in anything. In fact, it challenges you to challenge everything that is considered to be a belief. And so, no, Stoicism isn't to ask anybody to take on a belief system or to take away from a belief system. As a matter of fact, it's meant to enhance the system. And when you look at the Bible consistently, Stoicism and stories behind Jesus Christ very much line up. And the other thing I'm going to talk about is like taking responsibility for yourself. Like the body is the temple. It's very so. In addition to what you're talking about, it's over and over in multiple religions, but especially Christianity. The body is the temple, and I don't think we take that too seriously. We don't take it seriously at all. As a matter of fact, look at our healthcare system and look at everybody's bodies.
Mm-hmm.
We are deformed. If you're fat and you're overweight, you are deformed.
Oh, for
That's
sure.
not your normal form. You know what I mean? And how well can you connect with God if the senses that He gave you are manipulated because your body is poisoned?
Yeah, the mind's eye. That's one of the biggest things. Did you ever? There was a. I believe that central cortex, the mind, what the Bible calls the mind's eye, is basically our connection with God, and it's what Joe Rogan and everybody would say gets goes on a trip with DMT and stuff, and they feel like they're talking to spirit beings, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
let's see. Is it this tattoo? Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Right. And so what's interesting about it is that Bill Gates, which I think is pure evil in this world, but there's a video of him where he was talking about creating a vaccine to or an injection, which I think he said was a vaccine to cure religious radicalism, right? And so he said
I
that
saw that. I saw that. That's creepy. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. I love talking about this stuff. Like seriously, like he says that when people pray to God, that that there's a part of the brain that lights up in the center cortex of the brain that creates a close connection with deities or whatever. But I believe God, right? I think it's in the center of us all, our Creator, and he said, well, that's what creates this radical, religious radicalism and terrorists and things like that. So he created a vaccine or an injection that he said would stop that part of the brain from lighting up if they took it. And he gave it to people. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even, it's worse than that. So I actually wrote a book based off this premise.
Okay.
I called it the cleanse. And it was a way that radicals, somebody like Bill Gates and like this like kind of ruling elite. So let me back up. So he was suggesting that there's a thing I called the God gene.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's very interesting is like people who believe in religion typically have this God gene. And when that God gene is expressed, they have certain parts in their brain that connect, when like you said, when they pray, and you're more likely to have it because like religious people usually have more kids, and they're usually the dominant, like they become the dominant. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Well,
class
they're
in society.
right. Yeah,
And
they're gonna be the the people that persist, right? Because they believe
right.
in procreation versus killing.
Exactly, exactly. And so, what ends up happening is that when you become more atheistic, that kind of the expression, it's called epigenetics. So, like DNA and genetic expressions are on or off, turn on or off based on your environment. And so, if you become an atheist, there is a certain part of your brain, like when you hear scripture or you hear people preaching with something that you disagree with on a religious level, it triggers the same thing as disgust, as if you were to see rotten food.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so what he was able to do is create a virus that would target the epigenetics of the gene expression being turned on for people who are religious, because they were more inclined to be radicalized. And so not only was it like something that he can inject you with, it could be airborne.
Oh wow.
And so it could go around and be genetically altered, or genetically modified to only activate that virus amongst people who had the God gene, and and force those epigenetics to go off, which means that they would feel disgusted, you know what I mean, when they talk about religion. He was basically going
Right.
to try to get rid of people feeling religious connections, basically, on an emotional level. And so I wrote this book called The Cleanse, in which they were planning on doing this to the population. Because, by the way, like every time you like send your DNA swab and things like that, they are
Oh yeah.
building a genetic map. They are building this entire genetic code that is starting to relate certain things, so they could tell. Like, for example, if you and your wife, you don't have kids, and you say you put your genes, like your DNA in, and you send it in there, they can tell you the likelihood that your kid is going to be lazy. They can tell you the likelihood that your kid is going to have ADD or ADHD, like based on all these dispositions. And that tripped me out. So the book I was writing is um a way for this with based off that same principle, for an airborne virus to only activate based on certain genetic principles, that if you were going to be predisposed to be lazy, predisposed to have cancer, predisposed for a litany of things. And so that all of a sudden we would get down to an optimal human population, and it wouldn't kill them, it would make them sterile.
Mm.
And so all of a sudden, all these people who have these predisposed dispositions, or predisposed uh what's the word I'm looking for? Illnesses or trends, there we go. Then if they were negative and they weren't intelligent enough, for example, then they wouldn't be able to reproduce. And only the most intelligible, the most intellectual, and the strongest genes, and ones most resistant to diseases and cancer, so on and so forth, would inherit the earth. And it
Right.
was by a class kind of like the ones that would, like Bill Gates would be behind. So anyway, I wrote an entire book based off this. It was kind of fun. And what's crazy is, like, these are this is like reality. This isn't some weird conspiracy theory. Right now, you guys can go Google Bill Gates. Don't do it right now. Keep listening to us. But you could go, potentially, you could go right after this and Google Bill Gates giving away that speech. And what's crazy is he's the one with billions of dollars, not us.
Right. I
He's
know.
the ones who gets to talk to the politicians, not us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anyway, sorry.
No, 100%. No, and I agree. But see, this is why my personal belief is that all these things are as old as time, right? Like if
Yeah.
you read the Bible, there's a book that's not canonized of the Bible, but it's agreed. It's called the Book of Enoch, and
Enoch. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which is awesome, right? And
Yeah.
so what one of the things is the Book of Enoch's about is that the fallen angels came down and slept with the daughters of man to create the Nephilim. But what was the purpose of that, right? It was to taint the seed, right? To get rid of that. So when you say that there's a certain DNA that's the God gene or vice versa or whatever, that was the beginning purpose of ruining God's creation of man to create abominations, was to try to taint all the DNA seed to try to breed out
Hmm.
the righteousness, the righteous creation that God created, right? And that's been going on since the beginning of time. I think that's what Sodom and Gomorrah was about. That's what the flood was about. That's why we had to start down to just Noah and his few people, because they were the untainted seed that was left, and everybody
Hmm.
else had to be washed off the earth. But that's been going on ever since, and you see that. Right, and it's the same principle that's going on today. Let's see, we had a shout out here.
Yeah.
um,
I was just gonna say thanks, Mike, for your service. I'm
Absolutely,
glad
thank
that
you
you
for your
got
service.
100% PTSD for PTSD. Um, I don't know what the government's doing with the money. Just to give you an idea, this is something I only learned recently. Is that the government allots the second you join the military, the government allots a certain amount of money for you uh, for disability, basically. So like that money is kind of like already in your pocket, not necessarily in your pocket, but it's like it's for you. And every single day that you don't collect it, that government keeps that money and utilizes it for certain things that I bet you wouldn't approve of. So I'm glad that you got your 100% disability rating. Thank you so much for your service. I'm so glad that you found keto and then carnivore to make yourself drastically better. And you are an example, and your voice, like, if I were you, I would tell anybody and everybody that that's how
Hmm.
you were able to conquer your PTSD, because you are the few, but you are powerful. So, um, like and we can talk about this later about like getting everybody in the steak and butter gang and having our own group in there potentially. I'll let you talk about that, but we need to start banding people together in order to get more veterans into steak strangles and stoicism. We need to get more veterans getting the message out to know that they are not broken and that there is an active way to make themselves better again. And that, like I said, humans are badass. They're not designed to deal with trauma and then break down and become dependent and victims for the rest of their life. The exact opposite. They're supposed to thrive from stress and get over it and continue to be the alphas of the world. And so we need you veterans to continue to be the strong men in the world. And the fact that our society has let you down and our system has let you down is atrocious. And it's my job to try to reverse that. So thank you so much, Mike, for everything that
Absolutely.
you do. And please tell everybody that what you did. That message needs to get out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, thank you for your service, Mike. This is fantastic. And to your point, Chad, yeah, I believe that, you know, united groups of strong men are devastating to tyranny. And that's what they want to stop us from doing, right? They don't want this to come back. And this is what they're trying to tear down. And so we have to first get ourselves healthy. We have to speak out to get other people healthy. We have to show other people the way, break trail. And then we got to unite. We got to get together and help everybody have each other's back to start taking over this propaganda war and this evil that's happening. Otherwise, I mean, literally, the World Economic Forum's talk is that they want man to eat no meat by 2025. You know, they're coming after all of our meat. This stuff is really happening, and you can watch it happening in other countries. And this is why lab grown meat and bug protein is all now has this narrative of being good for the environment and sustainable and all this nonsense. They're trying to take away exactly what we need to heal and to be healthy, so that they can lock us into servitude, really, you know? So we got to
Mm-hmm.
fight it. Yeah, on that note, on the steak and butter gang, I'm going to host Mike. So I'm an admin in the steak and butter gang, and I have calls on Saturdays up and coming. And so, which are Zoom calls. And so I would like to make it a lot about this, about men's health and kind of bringing strong men back, and how to, men are kind of in my my personal opinion, men are kind of an underserved group, especially since uh, you know, masculinity and men's health and all these things have been kind of attacked, in which, I mean, as soon as they start attacking something, you got to wonder why.
Mm,
It's not for the good of society, right? When everything's on board that, you know, man bad, testosterone bad, masculinity bad, meat bad. I mean, it's the exact thing that our society needs almost every time because that's why they're going after it so hard. So depending on how things go, we're going to start doing calls, which is a little bit different than this. It's a live like this, but it's a Zoom call so people can raise their hands, ask questions, and participate. And yeah, we'd love to grow, because right now in the carnivore community, it's about 80% women, you know, which there's
mhm.
which we're happy to have them. But you women need some strong husbands too, some strong, healthy, happy, mentally adjusted husbands. And so we want to start working on that front too. And I think that's where me and Chad would like to start working together quite a bit and see where we can go with that. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see guys in SBG and um, yeah, we can start diving into that. So let's
You,
see here.
you're exactly right. The women are more willing to ask for help. As Jordan Peterson puts it, and so sorry, don't get mad at me. I'm repeating Jordan Peterson, but based on just the evidence, like women experience more negative emotions than men, in terms of expressing that. And so it's like, hey, I am not doing well. I need something, and they're willing to go out and get it. Where men suffer in silence quite a bit, and I know what it's like to suffer in silence. And the thing is, like, you don't even need help. You just need to be pointed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense where it's like, I'm not sitting here going to hold your hand. I'm going to say, like, this is how I would do it. This is how the science says to do it. This is how blah, blah, blah. And like to coach you and guide you, tell you what I went through. But man, you get to do it on your own, dude. And like, I don't think that's like, what's the word? Emasculating you. It's just pointing you in the right direction. Sometimes we need to be pointed in the right direction, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's a good talk in itself. Is just like, I did a lot of crazy crap to try to lose weight for 26 years, usually starvation diets for long periods of time. And that was the only thing that I could get to even remotely work, but it wasn't a cure. But
Mm-hmm.
most of that was because of bad direction from doctors saying, you got to eat carbs, you got to eat a balanced diet, don't stay away from the red meat, stay away from fat,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that healed you they told me to stay away from, and they gave me this other dietary plan that never worked, right? And that's why I was pissed. And I didn't even know that the depression and anxiety had anything to do with the diet. I thought it was just because my life sucked, my health was poor, so that was affecting my mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was so mad that the mental health was the first thing that cleared up when I had fat and protein. As soon as I had animal fat and protein within 3 weeks, it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I got so mad. And so, people want to create this narrative, this propaganda that if you if you try to make a case that the doctors are lying to us, if you try to make a case that the drug companies are making money off of us, if you try to make a case that this is uh, a plan, an attack on us, then you are being lazy, making excuses, and you are not taking responsibility for your part in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the propaganda is. Where the reality of it is, yeah, you're right. Ultimately, I am responsible for my actions, and ultimately, I did make the choices that led me here. But the biggest choice that I made, that I am responsible for, that I take full responsibility of, is that I delegated my own health blindly to the white coat professionals and the propaganda, professionals,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted a miracle. I wanted the miracle pill. I wanted the easy fix. I didn't want to have to go do the work. I wanted the easy pill, and I wanted to believe that these guys had that these guys were going to make me better so that I wouldn't have to make me better. You know what I mean?
All right, exactly.
And
It's
that is always
outsourcing all the most important things of your life, like outsourcing. I think religion does this a lot too, but like outsourcing your spirituality, outsourcing your health, outsourcing the knowledge of your health, outsourcing your food, in terms of like don't worry, like somebody else will catch my food, raise my food, process my food, and basically I just pull it out of a plastic package and put it in my mouth. And I can go into a lot of, there's a million things of why that's wrong. But I think we outsource a lot of it. And when we outsource our health, we start outsourcing our knowledge of what's good for us. And those are the last things you want to outsource.
Right, 100%. Here we go. The largest issue I had was consumption of high carb meals and snacks. These days, I very, very rarely touch any type of alcohol. I tell the VA that I am on a keto regimen. That's awesome,
Mm-hmm.
man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, and put in the comments if you guys had similar experiences. But I literally found this way of eating while I was dying. But I found this way of eating as a last ditch effort, Hail Mary.
Right.
But what I didn't realize is that everything else was going to hear up. I had all sorts of addictive personality behavior for gambling, nicotine, eating too much, eating sugar, caffeine, soda, even diet sweeteners, all this stuff. I was helpless, just absolutely felt helplessly addicted to all these things. And those all went away when my hormones balanced and my brain chemistry
Mm-hmm.
healed. All that went away. I have no compulsion or addictions now at all, and it completely healed up along with the anxiety, the depression, and all that stuff. And so it is amazing what they have compartmentalized and broke up into all these different diagnoses and gave it
Mm-hmm.
different names so that they can treat every one of them individually with drugs, when all you have to do is go to the root cause, which is just our diet, and put the building blocks, stop poisoning our body, give the body the nutrition that it needs, and it can take all care of all of that all at once without. They like you said, they look at it backwards on purpose. They don't look at the catalyst because they don't want you narrowing it down to what the real problem is, because if you fix that one thing, which is actually pretty easy to fix, it cures everything. They want to look at it from the symptom down so they can prescribe you a drug for every symptom that you have
Mm-hmm.
and just treat those things because it's mass profit, mass control. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And the between the pharmaceutical companies, the food companies, the insurance companies, there are all subsidized, and we pay for it on, yeah, it's a for-profit scam. It's all a giant for-profit scam. And the thing is, what is being sacrificed for that is our health. And everyone's determined that our health is ephemeral. It's like, yeah, no problem, but that's a good sacrifice. You know what I mean? That's a good trade-off. There's a word I'm looking for. Everyone decided that your health as a trade-off was completely fine and acceptable.
Right.
And they do this, like, they profit off of the fact that you are not healthy and that you don't know anything about food, diet, and nutrition. They are keeping you in that state as a profit motivator.
Right.
And
It
so,
is. But
yeah,
we're in the matrix, right?
yeah,
They have us distracted. We are this, in the matrix, we are batteries, energy generators, but we are we are generators of profit for these people, right? That's the
mm-hmm,
energy that's the example in the matrix, and they keep us blind. The matrix is keep just like you said, Chad, keeping us just like the circus, right? It's keeping us entertained, keeping us distracted, keeping us pacified with our social media and all of our comforts and all the easy gratification that we have at our fingertips all the time for the little dopamine fix. That is the circus. That is the distraction that they can keep us in. Well, that's like being in the matrix, being in the pod. They play the little world, your little movie, and your little life that you go through. But really, they don't give a crap about you. You are a serial number in a pod, and that's how they look at us. Every time we're born, every time we're just a new person in their global economy of these people, that we are just ones and zeros, dollars and cents to these people, and that's how they look at us. And they don't want 15 billion people on the earth because they worry that the population is going to get too big to govern and too big to
mm-hmm.
control. You know, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know that this puts so many people are gonna fight me and say this is a conspiracy theory and all these things. But the reality of it is we have to understand that we are at war. And we because they've made sugar and all this stuff that's killing us so cute, and they've wrapped it up in our culture of holidays and celebrations and birthdays and our
Rituals.
yeah,
They put it in
rituals.
rituals. Like
Yeah,
breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Here's a bunch of sugar and grains. Like,
right.
yeah.
And what does the sugar look like? It doesn't, it should look like it should have more warnings on it than cigarettes, and it should look like it's got a toxic, warning sign on it, like this shit's gonna kill you. But it doesn't. Instead, it's got little cartoon characters on it and bunnies and pretty colors, and everybody says things like, are you gonna have a cheat day for your birthday? And it's like, no, this stuff kills more people and causes more suffering on earth than communism, than all the world wars. Right? This is making
Yeah.
victims. And so, you know, that's why it drives me nuts when people are like, well, just have a hard time getting off it. How do you stay away from it? I'm like, if you knew that you were being attacked actively daily by the minute by an enemy that hates you and wants to see you destroyed, would you give them your money and then take their poison to help them, or are you going to fight them?
Yeah. I don't even know if they hate us as much as fear us.
Yeah,
Like it, and that I think makes it even worse. You know what I mean?
for sure.
I look at sugar. Is that the dogs?
Yeah, my dog just freaked
Yeah,
out in here. Sorry.
no problem. I love dogs. I was like that distinct sound, like the dog, like hardwood floors and
Yeah,
dog nails. Um, this is something that I view now. Like once the more and more you dive into it, the more and more you start understanding and reading the studies and looking into what these foods do to you, like seed oils and processed sugar and stuff, you start to, when you finally realize how bad it is, when I look at sugar now, it looks to me like staples that taste good.
right.
Does that make sense? It's
It
like,
does. Yeah.
I get that tastes good, but that would destroy my body. That's how I view it. And so people are like, well, I'm not that disciplined to do it. I'm like, it has nothing to do with discipline. The same way you want to eat a staple is the same way I want to eat sugar.
Yeah, exactly. I say the same thing all about meth. I'm like, replace the word sugar with meth.
Mhm.
Replace the word cheat day with like, freebasing or something, right? Like are you gonna have a freebasing day for your
Yeah.
birthday? Are you gonna have some meth for your birthday? Like, why would I do that? Like, why would I try? And it's actually even worse. That's the thing, is we have to use that kind of shock language, but sugar's actually worse. It's more addictive than those things. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you can't kill yourself in a single dose, but it'll make you a slave, and it'll make you an addict for your entire life. And it's the most available, drug that there is.
Yeah.
And they talk about what makes drugs addictive is their availability, right? Dr. Phil in the SBG was always says this, but he was talking about, and I'm probably going to get the drug wrong, but in Vietnam, I think it was heroin or something that was very available in Vietnam. And like a lot of the combat veterans used heroin in Vietnam and had at least tried it a few times, but only when everybody got home, only like 1% relapsed or something on heroin and kept that addiction. And it was because it wasn't available, right? Where
Mm.
if you look at our society, it takes the most addictive substances and it makes sure that it's available, and then they tell us that it's because it's so addictive, but actually it's the environment that makes things addictive, right? It would go away if it wasn't available and we couldn't get to it. The addiction does go away, and that's what Dr. Phil's point was. And we have to realize this will show, this is an example of how propaganda works and how these companies actually work. When back in whenever they started putting labels on cigarettes, right? Everybody was like, oh, they finally found out that cigarettes are so bad, they're going to go after the big tobacco companies. These companies are going to go bankrupt because they've, proved that cigarettes are bad for you and that they're addictive and they cause cancer and emphysema and all this crap, right? So they start putting warning labels on there. Now, some of the warnings tell you all the bad things that they cause, but what is one of the warning labels on there? That tells you how massively addictive it is, right?
Hmm.
Well, we all think that was really sticking it to the tobacco companies. Those guys, they were on board with that. They love that because what happened was they got to put labeling to mass for mass psychosis to brainwash the people that their product was super addictive, that they needed help getting off it. So what did the tobacco companies do? They
God.
stopped putting tobacco in cigarettes that cost $5 a pack, and they started putting in Nicorette gum that cost $20 a pack. That you are now a helpless addict, so you need to pay 400% more for our product to get you off the deadly thing that you can't get off of yourself.
The nicotine gum and the
The
nicotine
nicotine.
patches.
Yep.
Yeah. Dude, that's oh my God, that's so disgusting. And then they went on to own the food companies.
Right. They went on to own the food companies. Do you think the tobacco companies ever lost a penny because they put warning labels? No. They own both sides of the argument. They are the lobbyists. They own this system. People don't realize that this is an attack. And so now all the nicotine just goes into vaping and nicotine gums and patches and bull crap. And they just moved it. It's still the same thing. They just charge a lot more now because you're an addict and it's way healthier to do it this way. So you have to use these really expensive versions rather than the cigarettes that we got you hooked on. And they tell you, and I'm just saying that because that all dawned on me very clear because I chewed 2 cans of Copenhagen Long Cut almost a day for like 20 some years. And when I got on Carnivore, my nicotine, I didn't want it anymore. And I quit Copenhagen after like 26 years, cold turkey, and haven't touched it since and did not give a crap. It wasn't addictive at all. It was like 2 slightly irritating hard weeks and then it was gone. When your body's healthy.
You know what's crazy about that? What you just said? Things that cause your hippocampus to shrink, right?
Yeah.
Cause BDNF, the prevention of BDNF to be active in its processes. Nightshades, tobacco, alcohol, caffeine, all negatively affect the same exact processes. What is deep in the culture of the military?
Oh, all those things. All of them.
Monsters, Red Bull,
Yeah.
alcohol, tobacco. It's like there's nonstop. Like I know people who are freaking vaping with dips in while drinking a Monster and a coffee in the other hand, and they are coming off
it's
a bender.
probably all the time. I mean, that
Yeah.
should be the vast majority. You just explained like every construction worker I've ever met too. I mean, drink at night, coffee, Red Bull, nicotine all day long, and that's what they live on. That's what they have all the men on. And why do they have all the men hooked on that? Why are all the men targeted with those drugs?
Yeah.
It's because it's what's going to destroy the men. They can't, because men, strong, healthy men that are willing to die for a cause that aren't beaten down, weak, and subservient are the biggest threat to control this planet has. Plain and simple.
It's like they get it out of you, your dedication, and then by the time you're willing to realize what happened, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
and to fight back, you're already like this weak, like dependent, like less of a man. It's disgusting that they do that to us. But yeah, like though, if you look up what alcohol does to the hippocampus, what alcohol does with BDNF, what tobacco does with BDNF, what nightshades do with BDNF in the hippocampus size, like it's all in there. You can Google it. It's not hard to find. And that's what my videos are on my channel, is like me just going through the Googling experience to be like, let's just look at this. And you want to say that we're at war? I'm going to mess up. It's either 1,600 or 1,800, but regardless, like over 1,500, over 1,600 employees, 1,600 people are being employed as lobbyists for pharmaceutical companies.
Right.
1,600. Think about how big a company would be if they had 1,600 employees. That's just the fucking lobbying guy. That's just the lobbying.
Right.
That many people are employed to influence our laws.
Absolutely.
For pharmaceutical companies.
And also all the pharmaceutical companies are owned by the same companies that own all of our food companies. So what does that tell you? I mean, I always laugh about this, but Ice-T said it the best when he said they are selling the bullets and the Band-Aids, right? They're making us sick, and then they're selling us propaganda to treat our symptoms while keeping us weak, taking our money, which means that we work for them when everything that we make, or the vast majority of things we make, go to taxes so that they can keep lobbying people and using our tax money to lobby and pay these companies so that they can make drugs, so that they can make food that hooks us, so that they can make us sick, so that we give them our money for the drugs and can't thrive. Because if we actually were prosperous and healthy, we could actually get ahead and, and actually be a real threat to power.
To add to your point, we can't even afford the drugs.
No,
so what do? We pay the insurance companies, which
sure.
are for profit. And they're one of the biggest lobbying groups ever. So we have to pay the for profit insurance companies who are also getting paid by government subsidies from our tax dollars to exist. And it's all for profit. And so it's like they're getting money from both ends. And they interjected themselves in there just so that the pharmaceutical companies can get more money.
Right. And
So
think about how that works. They set the prices up here, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, if you can't afford that, we'll give you a program or an insurance or something, a government subsidy, some kind to get it down to where you can afford it. All that they're doing is making sure that they can take everything from you that you have, right? Because they don't make it affordable, because maybe you could afford that and they wouldn't be taking everything from you. They're literally trying to make it the most profitable thing. So they set it up here, and then they say, well, we're going to go ahead and try to, help you out with a program so you can afford your medicine. And they'll bring it down till till they take every penny from you, and then they'll try to talk people that make more than you to try to subsidize that with their taxes too. I mean, it's such an evil thing. It's so obvious what's going on, and we're all seeing it in real time. And because people are so addicted to the food and so addicted to their lifestyle and their dopamine fixes with their phones and their television shows and their social media, people don't want to wake up, and they don't want to see it for the ugly that it is. But it is there.
You're right. I have this friend, his wife has Hashimoto's, and like there was this fraud online who was like, I can fix your autoimmune disorders, just give me $10,000. I can't remember what the cost was, but ridiculous. And she had like her credit card out and she was willing to go. The answer was worth $10,000 to her. Right. So like that to me, like not only was she going to a regular doctor and doing the regular medicine and doing whatever, it was worth $10,000 out of their hard-earned money for her to find the answer. Yet at the same time, the same people will tell me like, well, I can't afford Carnivore, or it doesn't make sense, or it's just like, I don't know enough about it yet. It's weird to me that the propaganda has been so successful that the idea of a magical elixir or a magical medicine is worth $10,000, which probably won't work. Yet the idea of just changing and even experimenting with your diet and lifestyle is all of a sudden now you have all the fucking excuses. Excuse me.
Right.
Like you're telling me you can't afford ground beef and chuck roast and things like that. And like, even let's say you were to eat, I did this math on a video, but it's like, let's say you were to eat a ribeye every day. Let's see how much that costs. If you were to eat ribeyes for every single one of your meals, it costs this much. Well, I know you're already spending this much on groceries. You're spending this much on eating out. You're spending this much on desserts. You're spending this much on medicine. You're spending this much on insurance. You're spending this much on, and so on and so forth. And a lot of people don't realize that adds up to way more.
Tons.
If you were just to eat a ribeye. Yeah.
For sure. Well, like literally. And that's what we find. Everybody that ever tells me the Carnivore is too expensive, I'm like, you can't afford not to. Like, you have no idea.
Right.
Like, I don't buy $5 coffees in the morning. And whether you did that, I don't care if you're out there and you didn't do this or you did do this, you're doing something similar, right? I don't buy snacks. I don't buy drinks. I don't buy desserts.
Tobacco.
I don't buy tobacco. I don't pay for prescription medication anymore. I don't pay for aspirin, Tylenol, Aleve, Pepto-Bismol, Tums, antacids, all the crap that our medicine cabinets are full of. I don't buy any of that crap. I don't buy, I buy about 20% the amount of toilet paper that I used to buy, because it turns out it's not normal to eat food and take a crap, a big greasy diarrhea crap 5 minutes later, because the food was not real nutrients, So when you eat Carnivore, you only go to the bathroom a couple of times a week, right? And you don't need that stuff. You don't have sick days, right? You don't have the sick days. You're more productive. You're more efficient. You think better. You move better. Your health is all there. All those things cause you to save money. All of them do. And where I'm at now, I fast half of the days out of the year. So I eat even half the time, right? So it's like, no, it's crazy. It's so much less. It's not even funny how much money I save on food compared to what I did. I don't go out because now, by being Carnivore, I don't drink alcohol. No, no,
Hmm.
I didn't really at all before much, but I mean that's not something I do. I also don't go to restaurants because I cook way better food at
Yeah.
home now.
Hmm.
My steaks are way better than restaurants, and my social life is no longer routed around food. Like I don't have to eat food to be social, right? Like that's not a thing that I do anymore, which I think is another trick that they do to us. So all those things come apart and it just turns into mass savings where your life does not revolve around consumption of crap.
Well, yeah. Okay. So then I got into this too. So one, I started with my kitchen and then I went out to society. So like as we're driving around, what are all the things in your kitchen that you will never use again? Which means that you don't need the space for all those things that you don't need again. Like for
Hmm.
example, I never use an oven and a stove anymore. I do everything through like a smoker. I'm getting away from my air fryer. You know what I mean? And different types of cooking, like open flame, basically.
Right,
And so like I don't even need my microwave. I'll never use a microwave again. I don't use my stove. I don't use my oven. I don't use my fridge anymore because it's just like frozen meat that I defrost,
right.
thaw out, and then I cook it. You know what I mean? I
Right.
so it's like technically I don't even need a fridge. Like we don't use our fridge anymore, like at all. And then I don't need all that counter space. I don't need new cabinets. I don't need new this, new that. Uh, like it's crazy that all the extra things that go into cooking foods that you will never cook again, going into extra like Tupperware, into extra like you know what I mean, so much garbage in
For
the
sure.
kitchen that you rest. And then I started saying, okay, well, if I go carnivore, what other things will I not use anymore? And so I'm driving down and I'm looking at every single building I will probably never walk into again.
Yeah.
All the restaurants, all the very specific types of like entertainment, bars. And I was like, dude, there's like the likelihood that in any case, any way, shape, or form, I'm going to walk into 70% of these buildings is going to zero. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like 70% of the industry, if everybody went carnivore, would go down.
Right. Which is devastating to the money people, right? To the people that have all this to gain. Yeah, because the consumption would go way down. If you were healthy, satiated, happy, off
Hmm.
of the most simplest things the way that we're supposed to be, we wouldn't need all these products to just maintain life, to maintain sanity, to maintain all this stuff that we do, because you're right. They've put us into an endorphin frenzy to where we have to consume all this stuff too you know, to stay happy, to stay, whatever, keep up with the neighbors or whatever. It's all very true. You find out, I mean, you do kind of become a little bit of a minimalist when you
Yeah.
start
But
feeling good. Yeah.
by love, like I love that because you don't own things, things own you. That's something that
Mhm.
we say a lot, but we don't realize. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like I'm so happy not having things in front of my life. In fact, like we are kind of like in the middle of this move, but whenever we travel, I just realized like my friend just moved and it took him like 2 weeks to move because of how much stuff was in his house. And then for us to like be moving literally was like, oh, I already got everything like ready to go because I don't really need anything.
Right.
Like and everything that we buy typically hinders us in some sort of way. And so if you guys are watching this and you guys are talking about longevity, one of the things I found out about longevity is they used to say muscle density was like the best predictor of
Longevity.
longevity. Yeah. And a long life, to be a centurion and things. And then that said, oh, no, 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 it's not that. It is, what was it? Stability. And then it was balance and things like that. And so what they kept saying is you knowing your body. And so when like for example, when you look at the Japanese culture and when you look at the Italian culture, um, like for the example, the Japanese get up often on the ground, like their beds are on the ground. They eat, they go to the ground, they garden, they go to the ground. And so even into old age, they're getting down and up off the ground. Everything
Right.
in the United States is propped up.
Mm.
You never have to go to the ground. Like, and the older you get, the more convenient. And you like, and so they're losing their balance. They're losing their ability. And it's like everybody knows, like once an old person takes a fall, it's like game, set, match because they
Right.
don't know how to fall. to the point where people are now going to gyms and learning how to fall. Like old people are going to gyms, and the only thing they do at that gym is fall over and over again. So that way they have they know how to fall to not break their hips. So they know this. This is in the literature. People are doing it. They've convinced people to pay money to learn how to fall. But what's very interesting is that if you were to just get rid of your furniture and get up and off the ground consistently, and you and I had talked about that. So like
Yeah.
we have like these little futons. And like I said, the closer we get with our ancestry, the better our lives get. So it's like, even though it's more work to get up and off the ground, a little bit more work every day, that longevity takes me forever. So like we don't have couches, we don't have like most of the time we don't have chairs, and we don't have beds that prop us up like bed frames that prop us up. We have these little futons on the ground. So like even having less not only makes us healthier, it's cheaper. My futon is like $100. It fixed like a lot of my hip and back problems. My sleep got better. And for me to take my little futon to a new place to wrap it up, wrap it into like a little roll and move.
Yeah.
Dude, that takes 5 seconds. I worked for a moving company for a year and some change in my life. Moving mattresses freaking sucks, dude. And like, but the thing is like the just to move your bed, you have the bed frame, you have the box spring, you have the mattress, you have the headboard, you have to disassemble it. It all takes away from your life. It all attributes to causing you to live a shorter and more unstable life. So I when you said like you become a minimalist, when you go carnivore, you start minimalizing all sorts of ways and finding all different ways that you can prolong your life. It's cool. It's cool that it starts off with just a weird thing of just like being a weirdo that eats meat, but you go completely carnivore or like completely minimalist everywhere else, not just in your eating lifestyle, but in your purchasing lifestyle. You start being like, you become more connected with nature because you kind of start learning about regenerative farming and how important how bad monocropping is. And then you're less likely to use plastic water bottles because you're very conscientious of the plastic in the water. You know what I mean? So now you're producing less waste. And then you're like, well, why am I going to buy stuff that's just going to be plastic in a landfill anyway one day? And then so you stop buying your kids as much crap. And then it goes on and on and on. And then all of a sudden one day you're just like, I don't really buy things anymore. Like,
right. Well, I mean, I definitely just naturally, I stopped drinking anything in plastic because I don't like the taste of it. Right. And it's just like, I know that it was, I started this with low testosterone. I know that microplastics attack your testosterone. Even gets in your testicles, they say, and it won't come out, and certain things like that happens. And then,
really?
Yeah. And so
it doesn't come out.
Yeah. That like, it's forever. Like there's they say that every man on in the United States has microplastics in their testicles, and it's not going to come out,
What?
So yeah, seriously.
I have never heard that. And that's terrifying.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, right? And they find that in men. So we're getting attacked. But so I see that now. I only drink sparkling water in glass bottles. Tastes the best to me, so that's what I drink most of the time. And then, you just you get tired of it. You look at all this stuff once you see through the bullcrap scales are kind of off, and you realize that all this stuff is nonsense. All the stuff that we were told to consume that gives us happiness and all this stuff, even television and media and stuff, you just start backing away from it because you're like, I don't think this is making things better at all. I think this is a ginormous waste of time, energy, money. And I think we work a lot, pay a lot of taxes, buy all this stuff, pay a lot to own it, to store it, to throw it away, to dispose of it, and all this stuff. And it's just a giant distraction, right? It's just a giant distraction and a burden. So yeah, a bunch of that. I mean, I say that, but I built a gym because I love the weight equipment. But I'm just saying, there's new stuff that you can put that you focus on now, not all this crazy consumable nonsense. So I mean, some things I definitely have increased, but I get that with the kitchen, right? Like I at first, when I went carnivore, I bought a bunch of kitchen equipment to make cooking easier, to do all these different things that I thought I needed. Now I smoke meat once every 2 weeks because I fast for a week. and then on the week that I'm eating, I smoke meat like on a Sunday, and I
Mm-hmm.
slice it all up and I eat that all week, like 20 some pounds of meat. I'll smoke it once. So I cook once every 2 weeks. I cook about twice a month, you know,
Yeah,
and
that's
once once.
awesome.
Yeah, easy.
It's like you
Just
get your life back.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's
So
amazing.
we saw that comment that came by, and I would like to
Which one?
there's a lot of them, but like, yeah, that one's my Carnivore regimen has allowed me to build savings account. Yep.
For
And
sure.
pay off principal on my VM. Yes. And investment. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Like, but people don't realize, and I want to get through these comments because I feel like I'm abandoning them. One person said, like, cheat day is a major setback. And I was like, you are right, brother. Like,
Right.
yeah, cheat days are massive setbacks, and we don't realize that when we go carnivore, when we get in ourselves more in alignment, like more in that vibration. I say vibration, but I don't want to be like viewed as like a hippie who tries to heal people with sound. Like, I mean, like in a vibration, the fact that when we are in sync with the way that we're naturally supposed to align with nature, like all things get better. It feels like your connection with your theology gets better. Your connection with your relationship gets better. These ladies, I believe in here, Susan in here and stuff, are talking about how they've gone like more like, yeah, living. I would love to live in a tiny home. Way too much stuff, and you start to realize that stuff. There's this one lady talking like, I always thought my kids overwhelmed me, but it was all my kids' stuff that overwhelmed me. Like, because
Right.
they could just make so many messes and so much more to clean. And it's all about the stuff. And they're so distracted by things, and they think they need more things to be distracted by, and that's the norm. And what's very interesting is, as both my wife and I have gone carnivore and the kids, my wife has become, I know this is going to be funny, so don't yell at me, feminist, but my wife has become like a trad wife. And we did not start that way. Like, now my wife is like a hot blonde trad wife. Like, it's like a trophy type wife scenario. But she's like all about, she's like, I want to let you be a man. I'm going to be the mom. I love this. I don't want things anymore. I'm just happy as long as we're together. I'm going to support you through anything. And like, our relationship is so tight. Like, I love my wife to the end of the world. I always have, but like the way our relationship is now is unmatched.
Hmm.
And that's because our value system, our understanding of the world, and our vibration, our like our synchronicity with like the way life is supposed to be lived, I think is becoming more and more aligned. And the more aligned we get that way, the more things within that synchronicity, that synchronism is, I think I'm saying that word right, is lining up. It's easier to see. You know what I mean? It's all the BS is being pulled away. So all the things
Yeah.
are obvious, like the triage or the priority list is becoming much more apparent. And she's completely changed on how she wants her life to be like. And now
Right.
she's a minimalist, and she's more of a minimalist than I am. And she's all about like, I don't care what we do. I don't care what our life looks like as long as we're together and we're eating healthy. And that, like, it's so cool. It's like, your wife is going to be the hardest sell on all of this, I promise, gentlemen. But once she's on board, oh my God, do you have the best wife in the world? And not only that, just side note, I don't know how appropriate this is to say, but she's going to look way fucking hotter, and her libido is going to be way up. Like, it fixes so many different things. And you're like, I love it. Anyway, I
Yeah.
love all of it. And she doesn't wear makeup anymore because putting things on your skin is way worse than what people realize. And
Right.
so it's just, she's just got like this natural beauty, blue eyes, blonde hair, it's beautiful smile, no makeup. I can just see every piece of her, and I love it. And I don't think there's so many things about going carnivore that that aren't even said in that kind of sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That we
For
don't
sure.
talk about often, but that makes your life so much better.
Oh, 100%. We got a question. Let's see. John's Combat Carnivore. Have you ever used virtual reality tech in your physical fitness? I love my indoor rower, and using VR seems awesome to use with it. If so, what brand?
So I have two opinions on that. Whatever gets you moving is great. Whatever gets you off the couch and motivated is great. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise, as long as it's getting you motivated. Now, I believe the more natural you go, it's going to be better, right? So I strongly believe, like, for example, doing jujitsu is one of those things because it's simulating a real life scenario that could actually happen, and it's getting me in great shape, and it's resistance training, and it's, hit training, like high intensity interval training. So for me, the more in alignment with nature we are, the better. But at the same time, every day in the arena is better than a day in the stands. So if you're off the couch and that VR is helping you, then absolutely do that. But my goal is to like break away from technology as much as possible. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
even when it comes to working out, like, I don't even care about machines that much. What is my body naturally designed to do? What did it evolve to do? And I'm going to do that, like push-ups and like I don't know if handstands are natural, but like making your body contort and understanding its proprioception in time and space, and understanding its balance, and understanding how strong it could be in resistance in certain positions, and climbing and crawling, all these things that we don't do on a daily basis that our ancestors did on a daily basis just to survive. So I also don't believe that I believe that you don't have to work out more than 10 minutes a day, right? I think you just need to increase your intensity. So whatever stage that you're in life, I believe, like, for example, I only do like, I don't even work out. Like, I've been really bad because I've been traveling a whole heck of a lot. But when I am working out, and I'm going to start working out hardcore again, just to prove that this method works, but I'm only going to do like 10 push-ups, or sorry, 10 minutes of push-ups, and that's going to be my workout for the day. I'm only
Mm.
going to do 10 minutes of crunches. And every single time I go, I'm going to go to failure. So I do as many push-ups as I can, and that could be weighted, or that could be like where you're like you're holding on to like a foam roller or weights or something, so you go past 90 degrees and stuff to get that stretch. But 10 minutes, and I go to failure, and then like I wait 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and then I go again, push up, still failure. Once the 10 minutes is up, that's my workout. It's given me one of the best pumps I've ever experienced, and I only have to work out for 10 minutes a day. And then I do jujitsu on top of that. So go as natural as possible if you can. But here's the thing, this is exactly like saying, where it's like, you can't afford grass-fed beef, grass-finished beef, fine, use Costco. That's a billion times better than any plant. So any type of workout that you do is a billion times better than not working out, right?
100%.
And so awesome, keep working out. But the more natural you can be, like, the more you can go outside, the more you can see sunlight, the more you can have unprotected sun on your skin, and the more you can do movements that are more in alignment with what your body's naturally designed to do. Yeah, I think that's probably the best you could do for getting the best results, I guess.
Yeah, totally agree. I think back about how I started Carnivore where I'm at now, and there were so many things at first that we need to make that transition that are crutches, and then we just find better ways, and we find things, and they do seem to be the more unrefined things, just getting out, getting sun, moving more, just naturally doing more things as the healing and health comes back, and you get strength back, and you get mobility back, and you get these options back. You do find that you get away from. I definitely am finding that, like, where I'm getting out more, doing more things naturally, and that seems to be the thing that our body wants. Like, I was surprised how much weight started coming off me just getting in the sun. Right,
Mm-hmm.
sun seems to be hugely important to
Can we
mobilize.
talk about that? Can
Yeah,
we talk about
absolutely.
that? First and foremost, Mike, I love that you've done judo, you badass. Yeah, but learning how to fall in judo, and you know what's funny is those courses, you can Google it right now or YouTube it, about old people falling. They're using judo techniques to do it. So, like, learning how to fall, like when I went to boot camp, this is something that surprised me so much, because I went to boot camp as like an athlete. You know what I mean? But one of the weirdest things is when I went to boot camp, I saw people fall and just land on their face, or just land weird. And I was like, oh my God, you have like never fallen in your life, have you? And they're like, no. I'm like, that what? Like, it baffled me uh, that people just didn't know how to fall, and how away we are, like how away we are from our ancestral knowledge. in the most basic things. But I wanted to get into vitamin D because I am a student at the Peterson Academy, and
Mm.
I took their nutrition course, and I'm taking their neurology course, and a lot of these things, and things keep going back to this circadian rhythm, right? And so what's interesting is we don't realize how important the cycles of our brain and body are, and how much the sun is the greatest regulator of that, the regulator of that. And so for example, vitamin D is one of the most important epigenetic regulators in your body. That being said, if you don't know what epigenetic means, it means that your genes are, I hope I'm saying the right word, by the way, your genes are either turned on and turned off according to your environment. And so you can have gene expressions be turned on or off based on stress, or
Mm.
based on the food that you're eating, or based on whether or not you're seeing the sun and getting that sun on your skin. And that is very related to your digestion, and your digestion is very related to your sleep, and your sleep again is very related to the sun and getting in the sun, and that vitamin D, which again is your vitamin D is an epigenetic regulator. So it's like it's a snowball effect, and people don't even realize, like, when you eat too late, like the amount of hours that you have to spend in digestion, it will mess up your sleep cycle.
For
And
sure.
if your sleep cycle is messed up, it messes up your ability for proper digestion. You know what I mean? And
100%. I do.
what's all dictating this is getting in the sun. People don't realize how dependent we are on the sun. And then when you take synthetic vitamin D, oftentimes it's from a garbage source. But taking synthetic isolated minerals or vitamins anyway is one of the worst things that you could do. And oftentimes we end up finding out that your body stops producing it on its own because it's getting an androgynous source of it. So
Right.
it's like you made the problem worse. And so, yeah, like you said, you start losing weight because you get into the sun. And the
Yeah.
reason that it starts to happen is because your metabolic processes start functioning at such a higher rate, because you are getting the vitamin D that is going to turn on and off the natural genetics for, like, it's going to alter what expression is being allowed to express itself based off the environment, and that environment is now the sun. And then now your digestion is going to get better, so you're going to, process that food better. It's all this feedback loop in the cycle.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
We need the
Absolutely.
sun. If that's the so like for me, when I wake up in the morning, the very first thing I have to do before I look at my phone, before I even take on the stresses of the day, I have to get outside, sit in the sun, showing as much skin as possible. Like, I don't know if my neighbors hate it or love it, and which is why I want to get my own farm. You know what I mean? And I read Stoicism, or I read the Bible, or I read. And by the way, like I said, relationship with the Bible is more complex than what a lot of people might realize. But I read things to make me better.
Mm.
And I start my day off with a minimum of 30 minutes in the sun, front and back. So like 15 minutes front, 15 minutes back, minimum. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to start my day. And then a lot of the time I'll do jujitsu and get in an ice bath, so on and so forth. And if you say, well, I don't have the time to do that, then I would say you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the time to prioritize the thing that makes you healthy, then there's got to be some major changes. And if you want to talk about sacrifice, I've made those sacrifices. I used to make gobs of money working as a government contractor, gobs of money for me as a government contractor, where I would be inside an artificial light for 12 hours a day sometimes. And it would be for either from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., depending on the rotation. I walked away from so much security, so many benefits, all my hard work with my degrees, all my certifications, all my clearances. I walked away from all of that in order to prioritize my health.
Right.
Right. And that, like, I would never, ever look back. I don't care how poor I am. My priority and my wife's priority is the health of our health and our kids' health, and spending time with our kids, period. I'm not going to let the government raise them. Our school system is so far off. And it's like, we have all of our priorities wrong. So, anywho, it's like, if you don't have time, one, you either need to make time, or two, you need to change up your life. Because anything that is asking you to give up your health and give up your peace of mind in order to pay your bills every day is wrong. And there are other ways to get through it. I know so many poor people that still feed them and their kids every single day. Every single damn day they feed their kids. So I know for a fact that my kids are going to eat. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Oh, for
And
sure.
so and so that's the thing is like, okay, then what am I worried about? Like banks can call me all they want or debt collectors can call me all they want. Like I'm still going to eat.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm not going to sacrifice my health anymore. Period.
Right. Yep. That's a fact. We do have to make, you know, and the funny thing is we think you know, in the short term there's a transition. In the short term there's a upfront cost to these things, but in the long term it's all more profitable. I mean, it really is.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be in a better spot. You're going to save more money. You're going to make, you know, be healthier, have the ability to be more efficient and make more money, you know? Like if that's what you choose to do, you know, you can do those things. And and it'll grow because ultimately people are attracted to what they people are attracted to what they don't have, and what everybody and have a need for. What everybody needs right now is health. Whatever, but what the biggest deficit right now is people's health. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything that, you know, if you asked everybody, people would probably say money. But if they really thought about it, they probably, if you asked them, you know, what would be one thing in your life that would, you know, benefit you, people probably say money. But I really think it's health. I think people need health, and they need their uh, they need their quality of life back. They need their health back. They need to understand what's hurting them, what's making them sick, and because
Well,
you can always make money when you're healthy, you know.
right. Well, the Dalai Lama has that quote where he's like, something that surprised me about humanity is they're willing to give up their health to make money, but then they end up spending that money to buy back their health.
Right.
Like, and like I said about my friend's wife, she's like she was willing to spend $10,000. Like, what would you sign off to get your health back? And we'll get to this later, maybe when I talk about more
Yeah.
about stoicism, about how you put yourself on your deathbed and you start going through your regrets. And it's not about like I'm not sitting there thinking like, well, I'm glad I spent all that time at work, or I'm glad I had that much of a savings account. Your regrets are who did you spend that time with? And if anytime you have a near death experience or something like that, you triage and prioritize the things that are important in your life. And it's like you look at your kids and your wife, and it's like this is very clearly what's important. It took what's it called? What's it called? Like a near hit with death in order to realize that. And so, like in Stoicism, you have this constant uh, relationship with death where you kind of come across that every single day to make sure that every single day is going to be lived as in accordance as possible with the priorities that you have set for yourself. And I mean, I'm looking right here with John's right here, the comment from John's.
Yeah.
It's like you've been able, like agoraphobia, agoraphobia is horrible. I have dealt with irrational fears, um, and they were debilitating, and they were, oh my God, I felt like I would suffocate and die. And getting on a proper human diet and then taking on stoicism in order to face my fears and teach me how to grow through that. Every time you run away from the fear, you train your body that that fear was worth it, that you did the right thing by running from it. And so stoicism has this quote that says, whatever is the obstacle becomes the way. Like whatever is the fear becomes the task. And just like in a martial artist, you spar as much as you can, so that way you find all the holes in your game, and that way you don't you're confident in every situation. Same thing with life, like those fears, uh, especially the ones that are irrational fears, are like I'm not calling you irrational. I'm calling the fear irrational because I've been there. I suffered through that. You, you're like we talked about. Your hippocampus remembers what caused that fear, and then it reminds you. But every single time you beat that fear, you shift that memory to say, "Oh, that doesn't need to be a fear anymore."
Hmm.
And so, if you, and by the way, every time you acknowledge the fear, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Your amygdala, it gets bigger and bigger. And it's like the gravitational pull, the black hole that is that fear draws more matter in, and it gets bigger and bigger, and you get worse and worse, and you spiral down into the black hole in which you can't escape.
Right.
And the only way to get out of that is it feels like you're going to die, but you're not. Every single panic attack that has ever happened has gone away. Right. And that's the hardest thing that I had to come across. when facing my phobias and my panic disorder. What is the obstacle is the way. When you face every single one of your fears, you are no longer being controlled by the outside events because you know how to handle every situation. If you have a fear of heights, go up high. If you have fear of being alone, be alone. If you have a fear of being in crowds, get yourself into crowds over and over and over again until you thrive. And Stoicism has this thing called like negative realization. It's like, okay, what am I scared of? Ultimately, if everything were to go the wrong way, it's called negative visualization. If everything were to go the wrong way, what is the worst thing that happens? And if the worst thing that you can come up with is like, well, I'm not going to die, then great. And if the worst thing is that you're going to die, okay, everybody's going to die. Become best friends with death. And once you're not scared of dying anymore, then there's nothing to be scared of.
Right.
And so if there's something that you can do about it, do it. There's no worries. If there's something that you can't do about it, then there's no worries. So I guess what I'm saying is like, put yourself in as many uncomfortable situations as possible so the likelihood of coming across an uncomfortable situation is no longer possible. And so in martial arts, we do this in the sense that like I was talking about earlier, we are prepared for the fight. So like, for example, everyone's scared of like getting punched in the face or somebody attacking them. But if all of a sudden you become a badass, then you're not scared of that happening anymore. And I kind of look at doomsday preppers. They're like, I wish you would. You know, it's
Right.
they're so prepared for the end of the world. Everyone's terrified of the end of the world. They're like, if the end of the world happens, I'm going to be the most prepared. And so like you should get it to the point where if you have agoraphobia, that you should go outside so much that you are the fucking boss bitch of agoraphobia. You know what I mean? Like it has no control over you. That's my bitch. And it no longer has power over me.
Right.
And once I finally got to that level, it takes some time. It takes hard work. And most people will never understand that pain. But like carnivore is one of the things that best helped me. But after you go carnivore, you have to do the work.
For sure. Well, I mean, that's funny that you say that, right? Because that's why I built the gym and stuff, because now that I have my health and strength back, I'm like, I'm not wasting this energy, because like literally I was a little bit like, I don't talk about the lifting and exercise that I'm doing now too much, because I have an audience that came from a pretty helpless place like I did as far as health goes, and so I don't want to, like, I know me 21 months ago when I was in the position that I was in, if I would have saw a guy like me lifting weights and saying I lost 300 pounds, I would have turned the channel, because, I would have went to a different video, because I was like, I can't even walk. Like, there's no way I'm going to listen to you, because I would have just assumed that I was going to talk about, that this video was going to be about lifting and exercising to get your health back type of thing, And the reality of it is that I didn't do that. I couldn't do that. Right? It was all diet, and it was the diet that healed me. Right? It was not the standard American diet or whatever propagated calorie restriction and exercise is the way out dogma. But something beautiful does happen. You do end up lifting, and you do end up exercising and moving more, because you feel fantastic, right? And you don't want to waste it. So just like you said, if you're going to do the carnivore, do the other things, because don't waste the opportunities that carnivore gives you. Don't waste the opportunities that health has given you to take everything back, to hit on all cylinders. Just like you said, you go out and you get in the sun, you read things that make you feel better, and then you do your cold plunge and all that, right? Don't waste the opportunity that health gives you, that your body, just build that momentum. That's what I'm finding that works really good, is just hit on all cylinders, get it all coming back. Because now I'm excited. I mean, I didn't think I was going to make it. Now I'm sitting here going, I wonder how good I can feel. I wonder how good a shape I can get in. Like, I wonder if I can heal everything. I wonder if I can actually surpass all even wildest dreams and see what kind of shape I can get in. I mean, it's crazy, and it's a fun trajectory to be on.
Yo, I would completely agree. And so two things to that. One, absolutely. Fuck yeah. And in the sense that you should build your life prioritizing you and your health, and then make a living around that schedule. Does that make sense? Like, my job has to fit in with my ability to get out in the sun and my ability to exercise and my ability to eat well,
Mm.
period. If that it doesn't fit in there, then I need to go get another job. And then I know that sounds weird and it sounds wrong because we're always like career first and well, my job makes me do that. I don't give a shit. Like, people are paying their kids working at McDonald's. Like, I'm sure we can figure something out. You know what I mean? That's going to be different. But two, I used to be like I told you, like, I used to have a major fear of being alone, feeling like my throat was going to close up at any time. And I couldn't drive myself to work. Now I'd have panic attacks every day. I was like scared to eat anything, do anything. And I ended up, once I got healthier, I flew to Brazil, right? I flew to Brazil and stayed there for multiple months, learned a new language, earned my black belt in the heart of Rio de Janeiro,
Wow, that's
right?
awesome.
And from a very credible black belt in Rio de Janeiro, and flew back all by myself. I travel and I compete, and I just had, some incredible competitions recently as a full-on carnivore with no carbs. That I went from not being able to do anything
That's
to
awesome.
run to a grocery store to run errands, as a freaking husband should be able to do for his wife that is like overwhelmed by all of our kids,
Right.
to now being able to travel to different countries by myself. So it can be done. You are not trapped. You are not, whatever mental struggles. You have to look, if somebody else is doing it, that means you can do it. There might be more steps into having you accomplish that. Who cares? Take the steps. The
100%.
every step that you don't take in the right direction, you're falling behind. You're moving in the
Sure.
wrong direction because the goal is moving away from you. So by being still, by being stagnant, by being content, it's getting worse and worse and worse for you. It's like you're drifting away. It's like, like you got caught in the rip current, and it's like every second that you don't spend paddling back towards land, you keep getting drifting further away. And like the land keeps getting further and further away from you.
For sure.
You know what I mean? You have to be like paddling in the right direction, and you have to be making steps in the right direction. I don't care how slow you move, just move.
Right.
You know what I
100,
mean? And
100%.
so,
And then it's compounding, right? Because
yeah,
that movement in the right direction makes you more efficient and moving, your speed picks up, and then it's compounding. Like, that's the biggest thing, and that's one of the things that hits everybody is they're like, well, I'm too far gone, I'm whatever, that's too out of my reach or whatever.
mm-hmm.
Well, no matter what, this time is going to go by anyways, and your situation's either going to get worse or it's going to get better. So you don't have to say that I have to be here or it can only take this long or whatever. You just have to search out the things that actually make a difference, that are actually sustainable for you, that actually pay you back and make you stronger.
Right.
If you do that every day, you have no clue how fast things can get better. And if you don't do that, you have no people think, oh, it can't get any worse than this. It always gets worse than this. Like, it can always get worse than this, and it will absolutely, it's guaranteed to get worse if you do nothing, like if you don't start moving in that right direction. And that time's going to go by no matter what. That's what I finally had to realize, because when everybody does a calorie, this is just coming from me and people like me that had a terrible time losing weight, and you're getting trapped when you try to do it with the calorie restrictive stuff. You always put a time limit on it. You're like, well, I need to lose something ridiculous, 200 pounds in 6 months, and so I'm going to throw everything at it. And the real reason that you're doing that is because a calorie restricted diet, that's not the answer, and it's not curing any of the underlying problems, and it's not making you stronger. You know that you can only white knuckle that stuff for so long, and then you're going to fall off the wagon. So you have this short goal that you can swallow in your head and get someplace, and you say, that's what I'm going to do for a short period of time. But if you throw all that crap out the window and say, I'm not going to do something that's proven to not work, I'm going to find the answer and I'm going to research it, and I'm going to actually do those small steps consistently that make me better, pay me back, and are sustainable. If you do that, all of a sudden people think that that's not moving fast enough, that it's going to make a difference. Those things make the quickest and most life-changing differences in such a small period of time. I can't even tell you. So don't think that it's not worth doing, because it actually is incredible. In fact, I think you can get healthier way quicker than you can get sick. I do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like
It's a
I think,
natural state of your body.
yeah, because our body is fighting for us. It's trying to protect us. And then when we give it the proper human diet, it's fighting for us. So
Hmm.
we have this great ally that God built us. It's our body. It's perfectly designed. It's the best healer we have, right? And it's here for us. And if we feed it, we can get healthier so much quicker than we can get sick. It's not even funny.
Right. But it's always like this. We have become victims of like authority to science. And what sucks is science is awesome, but science has been bought and paid for.
For
And
sure.
everyone's like, well, I haven't seen any studies that say this. And I'm like, and you're going to continue to not see studies because there's no money in that. Right? I mean, the money is providing for the studies. The money, like the money that pays for the studies, have very specific incentives in mind and motivations and agendas. And if you're going to wait around and wait for the studies to show that this makes you healthy or that makes you healthy or this doesn't make you healthy, I mean, didn't the studies show that cigarettes were good for you for the longest time?
Right.
And then all the people had to wait for the studies that say perhaps taking this heated plant matter with addictive tar and other chemicals into my lungs consistently is perhaps not the most natural and healthy thing.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like you had to wait for the damn studies to come out to tell you that.
Right.
You
Well,
know what I mean?
yeah, totally. I know. And the studies on the vaccine, right? That came out that was supposed to be safe and wonderful. And the studies on,
Mm-hmm.
or now the studies on Ozempic that says that this is the greatest thing on the planet, which we already know is coming out, and it's just causing, complete and total like what is it, neuropathy of the stomach or whatever,
Yeah, and
causing nothing.
it makes you what's it called? Dependent on it. To
Yeah,
get
for
off
sure.
of it is horrible metabolic symptoms.
Right. I mean, so we know that the studies are bought and paid for propaganda. We know that they're designed to not only get them off the hook for any legal responsibility because they propagated these studies. So, oh, well, the studies were wrong, but we tried, and so this, they checked the boxes on the procedural, cover our ass process so that they could sell poison to the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they make propaganda because, boy, if you don't believe those studies, if you don't believe the science, then you're crazy. But is there anything more studied than eating meat for, I don't know, maybe the last 13,000 years? you know, like
Yeah.
is there any more proof of that? Like,
Well, millions of years. We've been
well,
eating meat for millions of years. Yeah.
yeah, well, and well, it depends. So so Christians believe it's about 6,000 years, but
Yeah.
if you believe, like I like Elon Musk take on it too, that if you go back to the first written word, which was about 13,000 years ago, that they found the
Yeah.
first written word, then that whatever humans are, that's probably the beginning of it. So that's a good compromise. Like, I really don't know. It could be millions of years, it could be 6,000 years. I don't know, but it's been a long dang time, and it's been a lot longer than we've been eating processed food. And I can tell you, however long we've been eating meat, if we continue to eat the standard American diet for that long, our species will not survive.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree that it will be one of the, I mean, if we haven't already taken it, one of the biggest first steps in the the demise and fall of humanity is if we take red meat completely out of the picture.
for
I
sure.
saw Bryce Mitchell. He's like what's funny is like my favorite UFC fighter,
Yeah,
and he was like, "We need farmers." He is like
saw
he's
that.
like that guy. He's from Arkansas, and I love Arkansas. But he's like, if you want to save the planet, become a farmer, raise cattle. He's like, that's the attack. That's how you save. Exactly to your point is that we're under attack and people don't realize it. And one of the best things you could do is regenerative farming. But
No, that's
I
why I totally agree with that. Well, that's why we went to Wyoming. That's
yeah,
why we're all
exactly.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But regenerative farming is the way to rebuild the soil. Monocropping destroys the soil. It
Mm.
is argued that the Sahara was a man-made desert, and it's also successfully argued now and pretty much accepted that the Amazon is a man-made forest.
Mm.
And like You people don't realize what drastic effects we have on the ecosystem and the environment. And we even know that, like, right after World War I, right before World War II, we had the Great Depression and the Dust Bowls,
Right.
because we already knew. And like, we're like, oh crap, we're turning the United States into a desert. And obviously, for many reasons, that would make us not one of the most powerful entities in the world, right? But anywho, the idea is humans don't realize how much of an impact that they have on the environment. And like, I'm not somebody who would fearmonger into like climate change, even though I have my opinions about that. But regardless, it's like the best answer to all of this is to stop monocropping, stop transporting billions of bees a year to make your freaking avocados unnaturally. You know what I mean? Stop putting
Right.
plastic everywhere. And stop ruining the soil. Stop putting pesticides on all the food, killing all the birds. Which you by the way sent me down a rabbit hole with that. Like, it's all unnatural. You know what's natural is hunting and raising cattle,
Right. 100%.
eating red meat, and that ends up in the most loss of life, prevention of loss of life
Yep.
as well. Most
100%.
harmonious living with the land, being connected with your food. A lot of people don't realize that I think it's about 20% of your digestive processes start to happen before food even enters your mouth. In
Yeah.
terms of smelling your food, touching your food, which by the way, I think you should touch your food. You shouldn't use like fork and a knife. I think you should be connected with your food, but touching your food, smelling your food, tasting seeing your food, and then tasting your food, like that, all that entire anticipation, cooking your food, 20% of your digestive processes start, or 20% of your the stomach acid, one of those things, about 20% of the digestive process starts before it even enters your mouth.
Right.
So imagine how far behind that we don't touch real food anymore, and then it goes down without any of your processes being ready. How well does that affect your digestion? In addition to that, being disconnected from the process of food being made. So if you think about our ancestors, if they hunted food, they knew every single thing about the animal. If they grew food, they knew every single thing about like that fruit or that vegetable. But if they were like grazing cattle, you know what I mean? Then they knew every single thing about that cow. They knew when that cow was sick. They knew when that cow was pregnant. They knew when that cow was acting weird. They were so involved intimately with their food. I think that's why there was a love and respect for everything before we became disconnected from it, before we became industrialized creatures, as we knew the beauty and the sensitivity and how the fragility, there's where I'm looking for, the fragility of our food system and our ecosystem. And then by the time you ate it, you were the one who was butchering it. You're the one who was cleaning it. You were the one who was preserving it. You knew every single in and out of that animal's life, that animal's health. There's no way that you wouldn't love everything about it.
For
And
sure.
I think that's what makes us connected and the most human that you could possibly be. And the fact that we're so disconnected from it, and to the point where we're demonizing it, it's almost like you're demonizing our entire species and our natural ways. That's
Right.
terrifying. I mean, and those are the people who have the narrative. Those are the people who have the power. Those are the people who have the microphone. And those are the people who have the billions of dollars.
Yeah, they're called extinctionists, right? So the people that are in control made they are literally manipulating a group of people into being extinctionists. They're the ones that say that it would be better if there was no humans because we're just a parasite and we're taking, we're going to be detrimental to the planet and all the other animal life and whatever. Those people, I mean, Elon Musk even says one of the greatest threats to civilization is extinctionists because they are ideologically possessed with a pretty terroristic ideology about our species. I mean, it's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for sure. But I think on that note, I think this is a good spot to stop. We made it almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
We've been
absolutely.
jawwagging a little while. I'm going to put your link tree in the chat here and pull it up real quick.
Thank you.
Yeah. So everybody, if you like this conversation and you liked our guest as much as I did, and go check out his link tree and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Check out all of his media. Would appreciate it. And then I guess also for anybody that is not clicking on that, where can they find you at, Chad?
They can find me pretty much on Instagram or YouTube. Those are like the two big things I'm supporting. I kind of shut down all my other social media, my jujitsu channels, in order to get this message out, to talk to as many veterans as possible and to talk about these issues, which I don't think enough people are talking about, to fight back against the things that we're talking about. So
That is,
I believe we can cure the world, but especially combat veterans with steak strangles and stoicism. And so if you, like I said, I'm building my channel from scratch again. So if you guys liked anything about this, I think you'll like my content, which is are going to be on my YouTube channel. So please subscribe. And if you want to get into contact with me, I also have the ability for you to schedule some time with me with a one-on-one, completely free, and to kind of determine what the next best steps are. And then hopefully I can get more in the steak and butter gang. So that way we can get you involved in that community, which is going to help you get through this. But in addition to that, I have a complete and comprehensive introductory to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guide in my online community. And so if you're thinking about getting involved in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you got some sort of anxiety or barrier or hindrance that it's just preventing you from getting involved, this course is literally designed to take you from being in the car, which I'm in the car when I start the video, to being comfortable getting inside the gym and knowing what's going on, knowing the taboos, knowing what to do, when to bow, where to stand, and also what to do on the mat. So it's designed to build the confidence to get you speaking the language of jiu-jitsu to walk into your first jiu-jitsu gym. I know a lot of you guys watch Jocko Willink or Joe Rogan or these other people who do jiu-jitsu, and you just have this prevention getting you there. My goal is to get you there. So that being said, I'm also going to start doing a lot of live, like in about a couple weeks, I'm going to start doing live session of all my classes. So like from my dojo. And so I'm going to start live broadcasting all my jiu-jitsu classes so you can have access to that as well.
oh, that's awesome. Well, we look forward to that. We're definitely I'd like to have another talk. Maybe we'll do this one in the SBG gang, but how jujitsu and carnivore work well together for mental health and veterans PTSD and things. So I'd like
Absolutely.
I'd like to dig into that more. But we appreciate you guys, and we will see you on the next one, and we will give you updates. We'll definitely be staying in touch with y'all and give you updates on future talks, both here on YouTube and also in the Steak and Butter Gang. So we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for coming on, Chad.
Thank you for having me. I loved it.
Yeah, good talk.